Good morning, everybody. Let's dive right in. Today's episode is brought to you by Black Rifle Coffee. I'm going to head over there right now, do a little screen recording, show you what they got. Still showing Gothic Serpent up front. I covered that the last two episodes, so I'm going to skip that and see what else they have. Ooh, good thing I did. Buy two, get one free using the code ROUNDS. Okay, I'm going to go back to that, actually. That looks like a Keurig type round. Not my preferred way to get coffee, but hey, if this is what you're into, buy two, get one free. Use the code ROUNDS. Then again, there is that Gothic Serpent, which you can learn more about. There's a button right here. You can join the ECS. What else? So those are the first two. Okay. Left to right, light to extra dark, all the roasts they make. And again, like I mentioned the last episode, hunting season is full swing, so hopefully you have that stuff. Time to start looking at Christmas presents. I know, it's just October, and I'm saying that already, but hey, it comes around fast. The calendar flips pretty quickly. Let's click on gear. I want to scroll down here. Look at this. Cups, grinders, Chemex, dog leash. All right, cool. Yetis, another grinder, mugs, travel packs. I mean, holy cow. If you're a coffee fan, a coffee aficionado, or you know somebody who is, I mean, isn't this pretty much anything that you need to know as far as getting your coffee supplies? I think so. Go to blackriflecoffee.com and go to town to your heart's delight or somebody else's heart's delight. My guests today, plural, are Jake Harriman and Garrett Cathcart. They reached out to me. Actually, I think somebody who works with them reached out to me. Specifically, I know that for a fact because I'm looking at the email. I don't know why I was working my way around that. Somebody who works with them reached out to me. Two veterans launched a viral social media challenge and founded a nonprofit for political unity. Their nonprofit is called A More Perfect Union. It's aimed at healing the political divisiveness within our country and communities and hopefully ultimately bringing people together. Yes, I like the idea of this. I like the sound of this a lot. Divisiveness is a term that could be very equally applied across most of the country at this point. A little bit about Jake. Graduated from the United States Naval Academy, served 7.5 years in the United States Marine Corps. For those of you that didn't know, Marine Corps officers start their commissioning source through the Naval Academy. Marine Corps as a platoon commander in both the infantry and force Recon. Led operational deployments, including 2 combat tours in Iraq. And Garrett, 9 years as United States Army cavalry officer. I bet that fucker has some spurs, of which I'm very jealous. Veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. 3 years in ground combat leadership roles, beginning as a reconnaissance scout platoon leader in Baghdad during the surge in 2006, colloquially known as the Bloodiest Year in Iraq. Was embedded with the Iraqi Army in 2008. 2 very distinguished military officers from 2 different commissioning sources. They're going to get more into their service, so I'm not going to dive into it too much deeper. But let's get right into this. And maybe at the end of this episode, you'll have an idea or a desire to maybe bridge the gap with somebody. I think that would be amazing. Episode number 356 with Jake Harriman and Garrett Cathcart. Enjoy.
Okay, got the red smoke. Gun run! North or south! West of the smoke! West of the smoke! Okay, copy. West of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now. Come on with it, baby. Give it to me. I need it. You're cleared hot. Copy, cleared hot.
Where do you want to start? I mean, obviously, maybe perhaps not obviously, but, you know, intros are always a good place. Try to keep the mics are kind of directional. You can move that one around a little bit. Just talk into it, essentially. Goddamn, dude.
Just don't eat it.
Take it easy. Very aggressive. You can tilt it. Yeah, you're good. And then, yeah, yours is good as well, too. I'll let you guys decide how you want to intro. You guys know each other, so who's better?
I mean, he's better.
All right, let's hear it.
True. His story, I think he goes first. This is his idea. He brought me on early.
How deep do you want to go to the story? 5-minute version.
I mean, are we going to start at first there was light, or what do you...
I want to know where you conceived. He knows. Okinawa.
So the diapers were bad.
Yeah.
You know, but...
wherever you want to. Fire away.
Yeah. Let's see. So I grew up in West Virginia, little farm. Grew up in poverty. Didn't really know it, though. My parents were awesome. We lived off the land, hunted for meat, all that kind of stuff. It was a pretty great upbringing.
When did you realize you were living in poverty?
When I started middle school, and like that was back in the days when you remember the Reebok pumps, the little pumps.
Oh, yeah.
They were the shit, right? So, my parents couldn't afford that. I really wanted them, and I remembered having the same shoes I'd had for quite some time, and a lot of the kids were getting some of the kind of whiz bang toys and stuff, and we never really had that. But I didn't notice until then because it was a small farming community. Nearest neighbors were a couple miles away. I played in the woods, built forts, all that kind of stuff. We had a lot of fun, used our imagination. And even when I realized that we were poor, it didn't really bother me, because I just felt like we were super independent. We kind of make our own decisions out there. The town kids, kind of had all the cool toys, but I kind of got over that pretty quickly. And and that was really thanks to my parents, I think. Mm-hmm. My mother always taught me, look, there's always somebody a little worse off than we are, and we should be helping those folks in the community. So, there was this old couple in the farm next to us. He had become unable to work the farm, so we would go and chop wood for them every winter, deliver food, when they were shut in, all that kind of stuff. So I learned pretty early, you could be in poverty, but as long as you still have like choices, like we had real choices. We were independent, we could make our own decisions, we could do what we wanted to do. That's not real poverty, and actually throughout my life, this is kind of a theme. I really began to value that kind of freedom of the ability to make meaningful choices for yourself and your family that we had, even though we were poor. And later on down the road, I would found out overseas in a lot of the areas we operated, both in the military and then out of it, a lot of folks don't have those choices. They don't have that freedom.
Yeah, I don't think being poor has anything to do with the amount of money in a bank account.
Right. That's exactly right.
It's a definition narrowly used by a small section of the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I became pretty frustrated with that definition, actually. Extreme poverty, they define it as living on less than $1.25 a day or whatever it is. Strictly economic definition. We really flipped that on our head, on its head, and really defined it as that lack of meaningful choices, that lack of freedom, which I felt was so much more powerful. Because as you know, you interacted with a lot of folks overseas that had the same trap,
People here in the United States, and I'm not claiming that there isn't poverty by every definition. I do think that there is. I think that most people on their worst day of days here would probably not trade somebody where we were on their best day of days.
Yeah, I think almost across the board, I would agree with that. I think there's pockets in this country, right? I mean, like areas, and I saw some of this growing up, areas in really remote rural Appalachia, some of the inner city stuff that I've seen since then, where it is a situation where there's a lack of these meaningful choices. But large scale in this country, we have that freedom, and it doesn't compare. And actually, when I was trying to convey that to folks here, when I got home, it was difficult to talk about that because people would be like, "Hey, why do you want to help people overseas who are in poverty? We got lots of poor people here at home. Why aren't you focusing on that poverty here?" Mm-hmm. And it was just on a different scale.
Yeah. Yeah. That's your intro? You didn't even use your name.
That's it, man.
You didn't even use your name.
I'm Jake Harriman.
I mean, I'm just saying, as far as intros go, I don't know the technical description on what is required. The story of this is fantastic, but you left out some key features. What got you out of West Virginia? I'm assuming the military.
It did. Yeah. So my dad was in the Navy for 4 years. Good man. Yeah.
What do you do?
He was on the USS Midway. He was a signalman.
Okay.
During the Vietnam War.
Did he enjoy his experience?
He did not, I would say.
Shocking story that I've never heard before. Tell me more.
It was funny, actually, growing up. Like he didn't talk about it a whole lot, but I always remember. Do you remember the 4th of July? Actually, they probably still do that here. There were always these great parades, and you could always turn the TV on and watch parades for the 4th of July when I was a kid.
Is there a parade here, Michael, for the 4th of July?
Yeah.
Michael's saying, he's the local Montana resident. I don't really participate in them, but I think that I know that there's one thing that happens near the 4th of July and Memorial Day. There's flags everywhere. And it's awesome.
Yeah. So
everything straight down the main street we just walked across, as far as the eye can see.
Totally.
I love it.
And we had this little black and white TV that we would, every 4th of July, we'd turn it on and watch these parades. And I remember when I was a kid, my dad would tear up, when he'd watch these parades. And my dad was a pretty tough guy. Like I never saw him cry. And I remember thinking when I was really young, like, he's got something in his eye, like, what's going on here? You know, why is he crying? Eventually, as I got to know my dad more, he had some really good friends who were Marines during Vietnam, paid the ultimate sacrifice, and he really understood the cost of freedom, right, that we all talked about, but he actually knew it in practice. And I began to feel a sense of, you know, this kind of call of, I mean, it sounds corny, but call of duty, this kind of need to serve others. And first it was in our community, you know, in the mountains in West Virginia. Yeah. But eventually it was like for some greater idea, this kind of, I began to equate what I called the idea of America with this freedom of lasting, meaningful choices for everybody everywhere. And that became really ingrained in me. And eventually I wanted to serve that. So I was in high school. I applied to the Naval Academy. Shockingly, I got in, but then they told me I had to wear a tie and I had to be in the military for 6 years. And I said, no, thanks. Turned it down, went to West Virginia University, and all my wisdom, because I wanted to party with my friends, and I thought we were going to be friends for life, you know, from high school. So went to West Virginia University. I never left the state at that point. Actually, once my grandparents took us to, I think, Ocean City, Maryland, or something like that. That was the one time out of the state. Got to West Virginia University and quickly realized I'd made a big mistake. I felt this kind of hunger to see the world, adventure. I felt that kind of sense of duty that you know, that was nagging at me from my time with my dad. And so I decided, look, I got to get back in. I got to go serve. I got to do my time. It's going to eat me alive if I don't. So I kicked and screamed and gnawed at it until they let me back into the Naval Academy, got an appointment, and in '94 I enrolled there.
That's wild they let you back in after turning it down, to be honest. It's a very competitive school from my understanding.
Yeah. I was pretty shocked myself, to be honest with you, but I was kind of relentless. Yeah. You know, I really fought for it hard because I knew that was kind of my path out to do something, you know, of meaning. And I really wanted to, you know, make my family proud, make the community, the farming community I came from proud. Wanted to serve, you know, like my dad had done. Yeah. And I felt like that was and we couldn't really afford a higher level education per se. So, as you know, like the Naval Academy's quote unquote free, taxpayer dollars. Yeah, I know.
Not everything is paid. What'd you study there?
Oh gosh, man, I'm systems engineering.
Well, at least you have an engineering degree.
No, but I have never used it one day in my life.
Yeah, but that's the story of anybody. Well, not anybody. The vast majority of people, I think, that go to higher education, which, by the way, as soon as I say the word higher education, I'm talking out of my ass because I barely graduated high school. I know so many people who went to the Naval Academy and are like, they didn't say quite poli-sci, but it sure as fuck wasn't an engineering degree, and that's an engineering school. To which my response was, good on you, sir, because I would have taken the courses with the least amount of math as well.
But you have to admit, like, for a guy to like put himself through such suffering with the worst possible degree, I mean, it was miserable. And why would I put myself through that?
Layered on top of all the other bullshit that occurs.
Never even use it when you get out, right? Like, why not do that? The guys who did poli-sci, they were the smart ones, right? I kind of feel like
Were they, though?
Well, I mean, I kind of feel
like
I was
on the... There's a whole conversation around the structure of higher education in the modern era.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. You went the path, well, I was just about to say that didn't land you in debt. However, the contract you signed is a much different type of debt. You know, my middle son is in college right now. So I have 3 kids. One turns 21 in like 3 weeks, which is I understand how calendars work, but it still blows my mind that we've arrived at this point. Middle son is in college. My daughter is 16, looking at probably graduating high school a little bit early. And we have these type of conversations because A, it's not cheap. And B, my wife has multiple master's degrees, and she came from a family of academics. And of course, you can imagine the advice that she got coming from a family of academics. What path should you follow? Academia. How do you pay for your degrees? You take on student loans. I can't think of a worse way to saddle somebody in their younger years than 6 figures of debt that they qualified for in ways I still don't understand. It violates every lending standard that I know of. Like, go try to buy a truck with the same inability to pay back in any way, shape, or form. And they just like, oh, do you want the F-150? Because Get the Raptor. I mean, fuck it. The money's free. You know, I don't know if that's a great idea. I have nothing wrong with anything bad to say about higher education, but can't we do better than saddling our youth with 6 figures of debt?
I will also say this along those lines. Like, I think we put so much pressure on kids coming out of high school to go to college. You got to have a college degree in order to do this, that, and be successful.
I think that's changing, though.
I am so against that.
Yeah, I think
some
it's
of the
changing.
most brilliant people that I know in my life.
Yeah,
never went to college. You know,
I've watched. So my middle son started 2 businesses while he was in high school. Yeah. Are you doing window cleaning for him still?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're working for his son.
Michael works for my 19-year-old son, who is at college. And okay, sorry, Tyler, we're getting into this. Did you do that one job for him?
We had to reschedule, but we're doing it.
What percentage of the job is he paying you?
50.
Originally, Tyler's like, I'm going to give him 20%.
Wow.
And keep 80, just passive income stream in college. And I said, listen, this is your business to do what you want. You should keep 30 and give him 70 so he is motivated to do so. He figured out how to create all of this business cards, business plan, YouTube.
wow.
While still in high school.
Wow.
He does, or when he's living in college now, so I don't know what he's up to in his mornings. He would wake up early and do day trading for months with a fake account first. Oh my God. He would sit down and try to talk to me about stocks to the point where I'd look at him and be like, I love you, but I need you to shut the fuck up. And he is using the educational resources that he has access to. He went to junior college and did a semester there, straight into MSU in Bozeman. And I watch people of his age, when they want to figure out how to do something, they're not diving into textbooks. Mm-hmm. They're not looking for a college level curriculum or an instructor. They're going to YouTube and they're typing in, how do you?
Right.
Fill in the blank.
Right.
And there are legit college level educators providing that information for free. Why do we devalue that over a piece of paper?
Well, even beyond that, think about life experience.
Yeah.
You know, some of the folks I mentioned in my life, like, they just have so much rich lived experience that I think trumps so many different degrees and letters after your name. Now, don't get me wrong, like, there's something to be said for higher education for sure. But number one, it is not the key to success. 2, it's not for everybody.
Unless you are working in narrow, like
very narrow.
For a brain surgeon, I need to see your CV.
That's right.
Just briefly.
That's right.
I just want to see it, and I'm not going to judge your medical school.
I don't want you learning that on YouTube.
But I want to make sure you attended one.
Right.
You know?
Yes.
But you prefer Harvard over somewhere in the Caribbean, right? Like,
I don't even know. I mean, there's an equivalency course or something like that. An accountant, please show me you have a mastery of addition and subtraction. For a surgeon, and but outside of those really narrowly tranched things, and I get the value of why you go. You could learn, you could learn systems. The most important class I think I've ever taken was typing, and that was in high school. Use it every single day. I loved English. Use that every day. Some of the math classes I took in high school, I'm like, I've never done any of that shit, but I certainly, have a mastery of plus and minus, and a mastery of how to use a calculator. So there's that.
That's actually a great point. Technology, the tools kids can use.
Have you seen some of these apps to solve math problems? They just point their camera.
Well, if you can master AI now, right? I mean,
no, I'm talking. They'll have to ban phones in math classes because you can point your camera with apps at a mathematical problem.
It'll solve it.
It'll solve it and show you how and spit you the answer. So the question,
seen that.
Oh yeah, and then the question becomes,
I could have used that.
Oh, couldn't we all? It's the question becomes, are they wrong to use it? Do they need to? Do you really, unless you're going to be that expert, do you need to know every single steps or every single one of the steps, or do you need to know how to find the technological solution to solve the problem?
Yeah. Long division. Do you really need to write all that out?
Part of having a degree is like, I think I had to do it to be successful, so you have to as well.
That's a very military-centric phrase.
That's right. Like, I had to do what you do too, right? Versus all the knowledge is, you go to MIT or Harvard.edu and all the courses most of them are free.
Yeah.
But it's a brand name, it's a network, but also, if I'm successful in business, I have a 4-year degree and I'm hiring. You need one too, right? Like, it's a gate that we've created to move forward.
Yeah. How the hell did we get off tangent? You're in the Naval Academy. Where'd you go after that, Ensign?
It's not about me. It's about you. Okay?
It's not about me. Trust me. Nobody wants to hear anything about me anymore. So you graduated as an ensign.
No. Second lieutenant.
Oh, that's right, because you went to the Marines.
Yeah. I decided
Which is the men's department of the Navy. But most people don't
I thought
realize.
we were going to go straight to crayon eating. I mean, I've got a sailor and a soldier here. You know,
Yeah.
I have absolutely nothing but respect for the Marine Corps. They do not fuck around. Them and Army Rangers. Holy shit! If you tell a Ranger to stay on a corner, they will stay there until it doesn't exist. Roger that. They don't fuck around.
I'm going to use
either.
that line actually. That's good.
Okay, so you went the Marine Corps route, and then this is
Marine
where
Corps. I will say this though. This was an important lesson for me. When I was at the academy, that you go through this whole process that they now call service assignment, right? Which is where 900 some people in your class, you get ranked, and you choose among like 23 different MOSs about what you're gonna be able to do.
Did you have to declare you were going to go Marines before entering the academy?
No.
Okay.
It's once you're there.
Okay.
So it's one of the choices.
Interesting.
And you rank them, and depending on how well you do, you get some of your better choices. And except for one field, and that was SEALs. And I really wanted to be a SEAL. I had wanted to be a SEAL for a really long time. There was an officer at the academy there who's a SEAL.
What year was this?
This was in, I got in 94, graduated in 98.
Okay. So did you watch the documentary Navy SEALs with Charlie Sheen?
I did watch
The documentary.
That. Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
I mean, it was amazing.
Thousands of times probably I've watched that.
All true, too, by the way. All true.
That's what I thought when I joined. I tell people this to this day. The only accurate part of that movie is the opening scene where the guy is passed out face down in the surf with a hooker's high heel shoe. That is the only accurate portion of that movie. Beyond that, it's all fiction.
Yeah,
that part is not.
I can see that. Despite the movie, I really, really wanted to go SEALs. And I think we had 15 spots for buds for my class. There were probably 300 guys that were going for the spots.
Yep.
And up to that point, I'd been pretty successful. Like everything I tried, I'd been able to achieve. And I was really going for it. I was just giving it everything I had. We went home for my senior year, went home for Thanksgiving break. There were 20 of us left. There were 5 more guys going to get cut. And they were going to call us over the break, you know, and I was sure I was in. I mean, I had checked all the boxes, you know, I'd built the relationships. Sure enough, I get home for Thanksgiving, and I get a call, and I thought it was going to be, hey, congratulations. And no, it was like, hey, you didn't make the cut. And it doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but for me, it was devastating. You know, for the first time, I was unable to accomplish something that I really, really wanted to go after. And I always thought, like, if you work hard enough, you know, you're going to be able to do absolutely anything. You know,
I wish that was the case.
Yeah, and I had this kind of arrogant attitude that I was unbreakable, I was unstoppable, all these kinds of things. It was probably one of the most important lessons of my life. It taught me humility really early on.
Did you recognize that lesson in the moment?
No. No.
Just want to make sure we're on the same train.
I was so bitter.
I learned those lessons about a decade later. First, I am filled with bitterness and anger.
Yeah.
And then eventually I go, yeah, that probably is beneficial.
But you know, it was funny because so my second pick was Marine Corps Ground.
Okay.
And there was a recon officer who was at the school also. And nobody knew who he was or what he was about. But he quietly kind of like took me under his wing and very patiently, even though I was so bitter, very patiently, you know, just kind of started teaching me about the Marine Corps, what it was all about. And over time, by the time I graduated and went to TBS, I was pretty fired up to be a Marine. Yeah. And I realized there was this kind of culture and code and kind of the brotherhood that and sense of belonging that was there was really cool.
The esprit de corps
That's right,
that the Marine Corps has is unparalleled in the other branches. I'd say the SEAL community maybe numbers 2,000 operators. That's what they've been trying to get it to for years, and they'll have years where 350 people graduate and 349 get out. So they're really chipping away at it, you know. And it's cool inside of the community, but there's just nothing like people who served in the Marine Corps. And I don't know how, you know, the Globe and Anchor?
Eagle, Globe, and Anchor.
Eagle, Globe, and Anchor. I don't know what it is about how they forge Marines, but God damn it stays with them for their entire life.
It does.
And it's awesome. It's one of the things I appreciate the most about that branch of the service, actually.
Yeah, I felt very lucky then to be able to become a Marine. And so went through the basic school IOC infantry officers course, got stationed at Camp Pendleton. So my first duty station was as an infantry guy.
Yep.
3rd Battalion, 1st Marines, platoon commander. And I had started hearing about Force Recon at that point. It was this kind of mysterious unit. Nobody knew at the time much about it. And of course, then I really wanted to go there. That was the competitive side of me. It was like, okay, if I'm going to be a Marine, I want to be with these guys because I heard they were like the baddest guys. You know, they were the guys who got the real missions. And so I show up as a boot second lieutenant in my at 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines, and decided that I was just going to go over there, and I was going to get a slot at Force Recon.
Yeah, I don't know if that's how that works.
It's not how it works.
Hey guys, just so you know, I'm showing up, and I just want you guys to know how big of a deal I am.
It gets better.
If you would like to serve with me, I'll consider it.
It gets better, man. So I somehow somebody got me a gear list for the selection, and it had the time to report, gear list, and everything.
You have no orders. You're just walking over.
No orders. Right. I just decided.
And for everybody listening, this is actually the antithesis of how the military works. The military, you don't do shit until you have paper in your hands telling you to do it.
My idea was I'm going to do so well at selection, they would not be able to refuse taking me. That was really smart. So I show up 4 a.m. Middle, dark, up at the pull-up bars. Probably 40 guys, kind of show up there with me. The gunny's screaming, everybody's running around, trying to figure out what's going on. Nobody's checking shit for papers or anything. So I just kind of like sneak in there, and I'm like, okay, this is happening. I'm taking selection. So
what did you happen to tell the duty station you were assigned to? I'm going to just be taking some leave.
I took leave. I took leave.
Yes,
I took
awesome.
leave.
Awesome.
I took leave.
Why wouldn't you?
You're gonna get to hear all my worst mistakes here.
Yeah.
So I start taking selection. So about halfway through the day, we're in pool phase, and I'm drowning. I'm literally drowning in the pool. I'm not prepared for this at all. I thought I was the toughest kind of guy ever. And
did you do any water training?
I thought I had.
Okay,
but I had no idea.
Okay.
I had no idea. And I'm drowning in the pool, and I remember the captain was on the side, the guy running selection. He's kind of like, he's got his clipboard checking through stuff, and he looks over at the gun and he said, "Hey, who the fuck's that guy in the pool drowning?" And Gunny's like, sir, I'm not really sure who that is. He's like, get him over here. So the Gunny, yells to the instructors. They literally dragged me out of the pool, come over, stand me in front of the captain, and he said, who the hell are you? I'm like, I'm trying to catch my breath. I'm like, sir, I'm a second lieutenant Harman. He's like, what did you say? I said, I'm second lieutenant.
He's probably now referencing his list.
He said, did you say second lieutenant? I said, yes, sir. He said, what the hell are you doing here? I said, well, I'm just taking selection, sir. They all start laughing, just laughing in my face. He said, listen, why don't you go back to where you came from, and when you get some hair on your balls, maybe we'll give you a little invitation to come back over here. Yeah.
For people who don't understand that comment, so a second lieutenant in the rank structure of an officer is an 01. The captain you're talking to is only an 03, so he's probably at 4 to 6 years in.
Yeah. And he's new, by the way,
and
to the
he is
unit.
new. So basically, you were trying out for the World Series team on your first day playing baseball.
That's a great, accurate description. Yeah. So yes, I went back in shame, back to my unit.
Did you tell your unit?
I told a couple people. That was a mistake.
Word got around.
Yeah, it got around pretty quickly. And I kind of paid for it in the beginning, but over time, I took on the kind of idea that, okay, I'm really going to work my ass off and try to really learn to be a good leader, because I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea what to do. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to be an infantry guy. I'm going to be the best infantry guy I can be. I got to learn from these guys who have been here doing this a lot longer than I have. And
this is probably, 98 at this point?
This was 99, 2000.
Okay, so we're getting close to the turn anyway.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny, actually, later when I ended up going over there, those guys remembered that I had gone over and done that.
That story has been told. It probably is still being told to this day.
Yeah.
You're saying that, you're telling the story, and I'm thinking back as my own experience as a BUDS instructor. And I never worked in first phase, so it would kind of be impossible for somebody, because by the time they get to second phase, that would be...
You can't slip through that.
It would be. I deeply respect it if somebody painted a helmet blue and slid in with the class. But even at first phase, I mean, they're dealing with probably 200 students on the first day.
Yeah.
I don't know what the instructors would do. I know they'd respect it. They may not be able to show that they respect it.
Yeah.
but goddamn, you would be like, all right, motherfucker. Like, I mean, we're gonna have to probably get you some orders, but.
You just wandered in here, dude?
Yeah.
You could, and I'm thinking about it, you could. It's an open compound.
Yeah.
At least when I went through.
Yeah.
There's people running around. There's 100% chance you could just fall in line of 200 people.
Yeah.
And probably
it's
do
dark.
about half of the first day.
Yeah.
Dude, are you even in the Navy? Like, I just want to be a SEAL. Like,
When I went through SEAL training, and they have since moved the West Coast SEAL teams down more towards Imperial Beach, and I haven't seen the compound, and I don't know what they're doing with the training center, but they didn't check IDs on the ocean side. On NAB Coronado, they would check IDs, but there wasn't even a guard shack. So there could have been if somebody
random dude.
and we would run back and forth because the chow hall was over on NAB. You could, and there was a bus stop right there. I mean, you would need to be wearing. You would need to be wearing the appropriate stuff, which you could source.
I was the first mover.
Yeah.
I was an innovator. You know?
You were, and I mean, yeah. I look back at some of that. I'm like, there were some gaping holes and stuff.
So anyway, I go back and end up picking up a platoon of really good guys, and I learned so much from those Marines. I mean, they taught me everything I knew about a leader to that point. You know, I realized how much I did not know as I took over that platoon. And
isn't it interesting the leaders that you generally respect the most talk about learning from the people that they were with as opposed to bringing all the knowledge with them?
Yeah. I mean, the greatest lessons I've ever learned came from the people I led.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I am very wary. The best leaders that I ever worked for and with never tried to be the smartest person in the room.
Oh, yeah.
They tried to be incredibly diligent and aware of their deficiencies and then staff those deficiencies with the most capable people they could find.
Oh, yeah.
And took no attempt whatsoever to take credit for it.
Right.
That was the best. The worst was the person who came into the room who literally, hey, guys, you're welcome to have me here. Just want to let you guys know you are welcome. And I've never heard somebody actually give that speech, but I've heard shockingly similar and shockingly close. Yeah. And inside your soul is just like, fuck.
Well, I've always, I say a lot that, one of the things I love doing is hiring people on my team that are smarter, faster, better, tougher, stronger. That's actually
why would you not?
Right. I mean, people who are afraid. You get all these leaders who are afraid to hire A players because they're going to make them look bad, right? That's the sign of a bad leader.
I was going to say that just means
it's not the right person. Yeah. The whole point is actually to bring together teams who are better than you are.
Yeah,
that's how you can accomplish things that are beyond what's possible, right?
I'll take that even to a day-to-day activity. So Michael and I both train jiu-jitsu at the same gym, and my wife is a world-class jiu-jitsu practitioner and coach, and we'll talk about it. It's tough for coaches when they get to a place where their students start beating them. And I'll have this conversation. Think about this. If you are a good coach, not only should you be able to get somebody to the level that you were at faster than you did because the knowledge and knowledge delivery has evolved, but I think the true mark of a good coach is that you are developing athletes that can beat you. Mm-hmm. And you don't stop them or withhold information.
And you're proud of it. You're not jealous of it.
Because the only thing that stops you from doing that is your ego standing in the way. Mm-hmm. But that's if a coach can beat all of their students and they never develop an athlete that can beat them, I'm kind of of the opinion now that I'm not saying you're bad, but maybe you suck.
Well, I stole the same from A's hire A's and B's hire C's, right? Is that you're scared to be outshone by people that work for you. And to Jake's point, right? Like when you hire people that are literally have different experiences or better, and whatever that means, that shows a lot about your humility and your character as a leader.
Yeah. How long did you stay in the military?
7.5, almost 8 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So
got out probably then as the captain.
Got out as captain.
And what's up for Marine Corps? Major. God, why can't all the branches have the same goddamn ring structure? It's
much easier, yeah.
I was on the receiving end of some phone calls sometimes when Marines would call and they'd say, hey, this is Captain so-and-so. Because in the Navy, Captain is a little bit of a bigger deal. They're like, oh, yes, sir. And the guy's like, no, whoa. 03, buddy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So I did a few deployments with that unit with 3-1, and then obviously 9/11 happened. Yep. Everything changed. Things got a lot more serious, and then we had just gotten back from We had been doing some work in what is now CJTF Hoa. There was some Al-Qaeda stuff happening there in Yemen at the time. And we had just gotten home and got all the guys off the ship. Everybody, was starting their new life that first week. And the battalion XO called me back in. And it's like, hey, get all your guys back together. We're getting back on the ship. And I said, you got to be kidding me. Because when we come back from overseas, it's like, a year to 18 months where you're kind of doing a new workup. You got your new guys, doing training again. And I said, what are you talking about? He's like, well, apparently we're invading Iraq and we're the senior battalion in the Marine Corps. They need us up on the front lines for this invasion. And I was shocked. I mean, none of us actually thought, that it was going to happen. They had been talking about Saddam for so long. Yep. And so, everybody got recalled, got back in the boats, went back over. They moved us up on the berm, there in Kuwait. Mm. And I remember we were all in MOP 4, had all that shit on. And we were all just kind of waiting. And nobody thought it was really going to happen. And running drill after drill after drill. And I'll never forget one morning, we hear over the radio this brevity code, lightning, 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 which meant incoming Scud missiles. And I'm thinking, okay, it's another drill. So I'm looking over at my guys, hey guys, throw your gas masks on, get in your holes. And then we start hearing this whistle overhead. And we looked up, and sure enough, a couple missiles flying overhead, landing behind us. And all of us start grabbing our shit, diving into our holes. I mean, and thinking, oh my gosh, this is actually happening. And all of a sudden, the berm blew because the combat engineers had put the line charges across the berm, blew the berm, and company commander comes running down the line and says, hey, grab your guys, get in your trucks. President just said we're going. And so then I run over to our sister platoon, my buddy who's from the Naval Academy, and we just gave each other a hug, traded letters, those letters you write to your loved ones. Gave him a big hug and said, hey, man, hope you see you on the other side. And went back and went through the breach in the middle of the night. Tomahawk missiles flying overhead toward north of Baghdad. It was kind of nuts, man. It was the first combat that I'd seen in my life, and everything changed after that.
How awesome is MOP Level 4?
Oh my gosh!
First target we hit. So we were staged in Saudi Arabia. Same time we actioned the #1 chem bio target in Iraq in MOP Level 4. Final stage. I mean, we had the clothing stuff on, and I did gas mask and hood. I think at 30 out, we started putting that stuff on. And put my sling right over the top of the blower hose. That was awesome. Ripped my mask off shortly after entering the facility because it was 100% clear there was no chem bio threat there. I don't even know how to describe MOP Level 4 to people. It's a chemical biological protection suit. Let me ask you this. How long did you guys wear it for?
Dude, I'm not kidding you. Not with gas mask.
Yeah.
Everything else, 2 weeks.
One day. I never fucking wore it again after that target.
Oh, dude.
I think we were supposed to, for clarity. I didn't.
I'm pretty sure my feet were rotting by the time I changed my boots.
And for people who don't understand why that'd be the case, just think about a piece of clothing designed to keep everything out, and you're wearing it generally in a full athletic sweat for weeks at a time. Yeah.
100 degrees, yeah.
Yeah. No, and I don't think I touched that shit after that night.
Yeah. Good for you.
Again, I think we were supposed to. I feel like the statute of limitations has expired on my personal choice. So, yeah. Oh, God, there it is. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
CBRN, chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear.
It's like those when you're cutting weight and wrestling, like the trash bag. Like
that's exactly right.
You know?
Yeah.
Oh, Michael, if I get a MOP Level 4 suit, will you do an entire episode in it?
Yeah, I actually thought you were going to say doing a roll on it, so this is a much better.
Oh, that's better.
No, I don't. I would not actually.
You might die.
I would not do that to you. Would you wear it for an episode if I got it for you?
Sure.
Fuck yeah. You heard it first.
Game on. So, one story I'll tell you that kind of, we all have lots of stories from combat, obviously. There's one story that kind of like changed my life forever, and it has impacted me still to this day and what I'm doing right now. It's kind of the same theme of this kind of freedom of lasting, meaningful choices for everybody. We were doing the push through southern Iraq, and the first major contact was this place called Nasiriyah. You might have heard of the Battle of Nasiriyah. The unit started taking casualties. We were able to basically push through the city, set up this defensive perimeter north of the city on what was called Highway 7. That was the main avenue of approach. for American forces at the time, and we were dug in. And it was about 4:30 in the morning. I remember I got up out of my fighting hole to walk the lines, check on my guys, make sure they were okay. Everybody was super nervous, they're exhausted, and kind of, hungry, scared, low on ammo. And southern Iraq at the time, as you know, was a pretty desperately poor place. Saddam had been oppressing the villagers and the tribes in the south. And what had been happening as we moved through the south was the regular Iraqi army, they were retreating to kind of make this final stand in Baghdad. And Saddam, I don't know if you remember these guys, but Saddam was pushing these like special forces guys.
Yeah, Fedayeen.
Yeah, he was pushing these Fedayeen guys
Yeah, they
south.
were staging out of the hospital in Nasiriyah.
Exactly.
I
Yes.
know this because Objective Barracuda was Jessica Lynch, and that was the second target we actioned.
Oh, you were in that? No shit.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we were right there.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That was the second target we hit.
second target.
Yeah. First night was Ken Bio.
Oh, okay.
Also known as agricultural school with tomato plants. I don't remember the name of that objective. Jessica Lynch's objective was Objective Barracuda.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, they surged over there when they got a positive proof of life through the video.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's crazy that we were in the same place. So the Fedayeen was going into these villages, as you know, like getting these farmers to fight us, right? Because they didn't have enough guys.
Yeah.
The farmers were hungry. Their kids were starving. They'd say, hey, pick up this weapon, go fight these guys 10 miles south here, and they'd do it. And in those early days, we were fighting these guys, but sometimes the hundreds and thousands as we were moving through the south. And that kind of set the stage for this like one day north of Nasiriyah. So I was dug in, got up out of the hole, walking the lines, check on the guys. And I look up on the highway, and this little white car is like racing toward our position from the north. So I'm thinking this is a VBID, right? They've packed explosives in the car. They're going to blow themselves up. So I grab 3 of my guys. We take off running toward this car to get it to stop. And finally, this car stops about 50 meters out. The driver hops out. He's like waving his arms frantically and like running at me. And so now I think he's strapped a bomb to himself, and he's going to blow. He's wearing an S vest, and he's getting closer and closer. I'm yelling at him, in Arabic to get on the ground. He's not listening. And as I lift my weapon, I think I have to take this guy out. I look behind him, and this like big black military truck rolls up behind that little white car. And 6 guys in black jump out. They run up to the car, and they start shooting into this car. And this man starts screaming, turns around, starts running back to his car. And I realized that he was one of these poor farmers who was trying to escape across our lines of safety with his family because he didn't want to fight. And so I yelled at my guys to take out the Fedayeen, and I ran as fast as I could to like save this guy's family. But by the time I got there, it was too late. And I looked in the passenger side. His wife had been shot in the face and the chest. She was slumped over dead. He had a little baby in the back whose arm had been shot off, and she was shot in the head. And he was cradling the body of his little 5 or 6-year-old daughter who'd been shot in the stomach. She was choking on her own blood. And we all see a lot of bad shit, in combat. But for whatever reason, that moment, everything slowed down for me. And I put myself in this guy's shoes, and I just thought, it's just not fair, man. Like I live in this world of choices, here in this country, and where do I want my kids to grow up, and what do I want them to have to eat, and where do I want them to go to school, and what were this guy's choices when he woke up this morning? He had nothing, and I got really, really angry.
I think that's a pretty reasonable response.
Yeah.
That's like an average person response.
Yeah.
Did you guys kill those dudes in black?
Oh yeah, they were done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why'd you let them start shooting first? Let me just say, ROEs might be different between units. Somebody gets out of a car dressed in black, armed, in that phase, you're fucking dead.
Well, we were trying. We were trying. And the way the road was set up, and there was a curve and there was a building.
Yeah.
We couldn't see the truck until the very last minute. And so by the time they were out of the truck, my guys weren't trying to engage them, but they were too far away.
Yeah.
And so by the time I got there, they had pinned the guys down by the time I got up there, and then this poor guy's family was gone. And we actually did get him and his daughter back through our lines to the medics in the back.
Yeah.
And I heard later that his daughter made it, which was awesome. But for the longest time, man, that guy's eyes, the look in his face just haunted me forever. And I just that was the beginning of like this big awakening in me. I began to see that, that lack of choices, how much that freedom meant to me, and how much that meant that my family could have that, and how wrong it was that these other folks didn't have that. This guy was not an evil guy, and he just happened to be born in a different grid coordinate than I did. And I started to have this kind of burning in me that I wanted to do something about that. And, we went on through that, took Baghdad, ended up going, long story, we took Baghdad, the war was over, mission accomplished. And we got pulled off the front lines, went back. I actually finally got invited over to take selection, went to force, ended up going back over, doing some capture, kill, snatch and grab stuff. But I began to see a lot of the same stories over and over again, and I believe, like, my guys and I were talking about this, it seemed to be a pretty critical gap in our national security strategy, because we would take out these HVIs or we'd bring them back, and their cells kept growing, right?
Yep.
And
They actually would grow more
Yes.
the more effective that we were.
Exactly.
The
That's exactly
disaggregate, ISIS or Al-Qaeda, which became ISIS, we smashed them so hard with a hammer that they realized they can't get together anymore.
That's right.
So it actually caused them to spread out. And I think their presence is in 60 countries, something like that.
Yeah.
And that's not because we're not good at our job. I think a part of it is because we're so good at our job. They had to reorganize and restructure how they did their business, which makes it even harder for you to – you can't – you know what I mean? That snake I don't think ever gets put away by chopping the head off.
Not that alone.
Yeah.
There's evil people in this world. We got to take those guys out. However, I began to talk to my guys. We thought, we need a little bit more of a comprehensive strategy here to crack this code. And we kind of hatched this crazy idea. We were like, hey, what if we could make a hybrid? Because the problem was, in these dangerous places, as you know, aid groups can't reach these people because they can't survive there. It's too dangerous. And for a while they had us trying to do this. It's called village stabilization operations.
Yeah,
right?
VSO stuff. It's the
VSO.
name for that morphed over time.
Exactly. Yeah. And but we couldn't do that shit. We were trigger pullers. We didn't know how to help farmers. We were only there for 3 to 6 months. So we thought, hey, what if we could make a hybrid? We could take knuckle draggers like us that know combat and combine them with kind of frontline development civilians who knew how to build sustainable solutions to poverty. And we could take these composite teams and we could embed them in these gray zones, and we could live there for 5 to 7 years, where nobody else can access. And we could work with local leaders to kind of build locally led solutions to poverty that were sustainable as a complement to the kinetic side, to build what we call a resilience corridor that would stop the spread of ISIS or Al-Qaeda in that region. So then when you're doing kinetic action, there's nowhere for them to spread. They couldn't exploit that poverty. So that was kind of the idea.
I love that idea. The U.S. military is not tooled to do that.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So we wanted to try to do it from within, realized we couldn't. And so my time was getting close to being up in the Marine Corps, and I began to think, okay, well, do I really want to go and try to figure out how to build this? Because it was just this glaring gap for me. I really felt compelled, and I kept, how it is, sometimes we all have nightmares and stuff when we come back, but mine was I kept seeing that guy, every night, and I just really wanted to do something to meet that need. And I was getting ready to transition out. I had lots of different things I wanted to do. There was a buddy of mine in my platoon. We were working toward CAG selection. Wanted to try to go that route, or as you know, the agency's got their paramilitary side. Was talking to those guys, but I felt so compelled that I needed to get out and do this thing because I didn't see anybody else doing it. And and who am I to think I could do it? But I just thought, the same kind of mentality that second lieutenant had trying to go over to take the Force Recon Indoc. I just thought I got to try. So transitioned out when my time was up. And I was at a little apartment I was renting in Carlsbad, California.
Very familiar with Carlsbad.
Yeah, I'm sure you are.
Yep.
And quickly realized, I thought to myself, I made a huge mistake. I missed my guys desperately. We had just done our paddle party. When you do the paddle on the way out, and a big bonfire on the beach.
We call them oars in the Navy.
Yeah.
Actually, I think they call them paddles.
And I just really missed them a lot. And I also felt woefully inept to address this problem. I had no idea what I was doing. And so I started to really kind of have second thoughts, like, what am I doing here? And I had to pay my rent. I had no money, getting out. And so I got this job driving a seafood delivery truck.
Fuck yeah.
I had
Basically the same thing you were doing while you were in it. You know? Just taking all of those skills and applying them.
Same exact skills. I had a San Diego route, Orange County route, LA route. I mean, it was honestly one of the best jobs I've ever had.
I bet. It actually sounds kind of awesome.
It was a great time for me to kind of like decompress from the war and kind of work through some shit and also try to think about how to do this next thing. But the longer it went on, when it was 6-8 months, I was like, I got to do something here. And I had a buddy who had just gone to business school because I was trying to figure out. I literally had bought a book, Nonprofits for Dummies, on how to like try to figure out how to build something to do what I wanted to do, fight poverty and conflict zones to stop the spread of ISIS, which sounds nuts, but I was failing miserably. And my buddy's like, well, you need to figure out how to build a company. You need to go to business school. And I'm like, what's business school? And he's like, okay, well, you need to it's a place where you can go to get the technical skills that you need in order to actually start to build something. That whole like dirty word entrepreneur that you talked about before.
No, you got to be able to navigate the business world if you're going to be effective in it.
Yeah, you have
It's a different language.
It
it's
is
a different ecosystem. It's a different structure. Yeah,
it is. And it had nothing to do with weapons. So, it was totally new to me. And so I thought to myself, well, I'll apply. So I applied to, I'd heard of, Harvard and Stanford had obviously business schools. And I really thought I want to try to get into a good school and see. I mean, I thought I didn't have a chance, but I told myself, I was like, God, if you want me to go to business school, you'll get me one of these schools, which was pretty funny. And I forgot about it. I forgot that I applied. So I was driving my seafood truck. I was doing my little business for dummies and trying to figure out this workbook. And I went home one day from driving the truck, dropped the truck off, went home, and on my doorstep was this envelope. Two envelopes, and they were acceptance letters.
Shit!
I had miraculously. I mean, it must have had a quota for a West Virginia boy who was a Marine or something. But man, I was like blown away. I'm like, well, now I have to go. And
then the tough choice is East Coast or West Coast.
Well, that's not a choice, as you know.
West Coast, obviously.
West Coast, yeah, obviously.
Stanford, it is.
Yeah, it was amazing, man. So I was blown away. I thought, well. The difference about me going to business school was most people go to business school at like a transition point in their life to try to figure out, hey, what's next? Like I've been at this hedge fund for a while. I want to figure out like, do I want to try something new? Do I want to be an entrepreneur? Do I want to work as a consultant? I was very focused on what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. I wanted to build this company, go back into conflict zones and do this work. And for some reason, people were really drawn to that. When I first got to business school, though, I was really afraid to tell people my real story. Because I'm thinking Stanford, it's going to be a bunch of really liberal people that hate Marines, and they're going to put me in a box. And so I, grew out my hair, wore rainbows and jeans around campus, and nobody really knew. I mean, they'd ask me at those little mixers, "Hey, where did you work?" "Oh, I worked at this VC firm. I worked at this PE firm." "Where did you work?" I was like, "I drove a seafood truck in San Diego," and they kind of laughed nervously, and I was like, "No, I really drove a seafood truck in San Diego." And so nobody knew what I actually was doing there for quite a while until I started building out some friendships. And then one night I was out with this crew of guys I'd become pretty close with, and we were sitting around, had a couple beers, and this one guy starts telling this story about the Iraq War. And he was Dick Cheney's aide at the time. And he's telling this kind of dramatic story about, so there we were, outside the Situation Room, and Dick Cheney goes in with the president and Condi, and they come out, and Cheney's like, "Go get me a bottle of this scotch or whatever." I went to get the bottle, came back, and President Bush was the last one out, and he walked over to the window, kind of forlornly looking out the window, and that was the beginning of the war. And I was a little loopy at that point. I had several drinks, and I looked at her. I said, "Well, that's not how I remember it."
Different experiences, for sure. Same situation, different experiences.
Yeah. So everybody looked over and was like, "Oh, seafood truck guy, you got a story to tell?" And so then, but it was really cool. Those guys were awesome. They helped me from that point on.
All right, so I'll stop you at business school because that was a way better intro. And now we're going to intro the other part of this. Before that, though, you still see that man in your dreams?
No.
What do you think got it to stop?
I'll tell you about the work I ended up doing in these conflict areas, but I had a lot of healing. Two things. One is the most important thing to me has come to me over time has been my faith in Jesus. That's like a really big part of my life.
Has it always been, or you found that later in life?
Later in life.
Okay.
Yeah. And I kind of hit really deep, dark places, after combat. And when I went downrange in these villages and I was living there, I had some pretty epic encounters with God, and my work in these villages was off the grid. I had no contact, very little contact back here, and turning all the skills I learned, to bring destruction and death, using those same skills to bring hope and life and choices to people. It did something inside of me, man. Like it really helped me heal. And people talk about post-traumatic growth, and it's a real thing,
Do you think it's a good thing that you stopped seeing that man?
I will say this. I didn't stop ever seeing him, but it was not every night where I was waking up in sweats and fear and anxiety. I still remember him very well.
Yeah.
His daughter, I don't know where they are to this day, but that was the driving force. I talk to a lot of people who want to start something about that get out of bed factor, that thing in your gut that drives you, when everything is lost and you just can't get yourself out of bed. And for me, it was him.
Yeah. I think it's important that you, remember, and that through whatever expression, obviously I don't want anybody waking up in nightmares and cold sweats every night. But my theory on war is that if you touch it, it touches you back. And I think I have similar experiences. There's people that
Of course you do, yeah.
remember, and they'll show up in dreams. And at first, I didn't make any sense of it, and I've stopped trying because I just use it as a reminder of the cost. And almost nobody understands that cost, but for those of us that do, it is our obligation to make sure that we don't haphazardly send other people into an environment where they have to pay it.
That's right.
And I think if you stop meeting with those people, I think it's easier to forget.
That's well said, yeah. That's right.
So
yeah, you can never forget.
You can't forget. And honestly, I've had some bizarre dreams talking to those people, observing those people, and it nerded me out a little bit when it first happened, and now it just goes where it goes, and it is what it is, and I use it as a positive reminder of you have to do something with this.
Yeah, that's right.
And you can't forget these people.
Turn it into something good in the world. Yeah, that's right.
All right. Now that you've monopolized the fucking podcast, sir, please introduce yourself.
I asked you to go first with him.
Be like, my name is Bob. I'm 37. I like the color blue. Next.
I love following Jake. Jiminy Christmas. How do you follow that?
I think you told him to go first.
Well.
And I was thinking in my head,
Garrett's being humble. He's got a powerful story.
Yeah, the only reason that you would say that is that if you got the banger, you're going to follow it with.
That's right.
That's
right. You nailed it.
What are you, like world hot dog eating champion? What do we got here?
I'm I'm a pretty normal dude. I mean, I feel lucky I get to do cool stuff because I meet cool people along the way. But my life is
don't make the mistake he did and didn't mention his name until 15 minutes into it. All right, let's learn from our mistakes.
That's a good point. My name is Garrett Cathcart.
There you go.
And where do I start? I guess I'm from middle class Indianapolis. Dad, super poor, from a small town called Seymour, which is the song that John Mellencamp was from, and he sings out in Small Town. And so he first got to go to college, and he's still pretty normal growing up, but I loved reading since I was a little kid. And I was always drawn to like military history and kind of current events and just history. And so in the third grade, I went to my mom, I never forget in the kitchen, I said, Mom, all these famous journals and like presidents went to school called West Point. I'm going to go to West Point too. She never heard of West Point. She didn't know what it was. She's like, sure, Garrett. And like laughed and kind of like, went on her way. At the time I stepped out, I was a high school physics teacher and cross country and track coach. And so, they invite like studs to like these candidate luncheons to recruit them into the academies. And so I tagged along as a fifth grader. Hey, I want to come to West Point too someday. And they like patted me on the head and laughed in my face. I'm like, all right, dudes.
Yeah, here's a patch or a sticker.
Yeah, exactly. Here's a keychain. Good luck, kid. And I, same thing. Never forgot. I applied to one college. That was West Point. I did the whole shtick. Got to get a congressional nomination or Senate nomination. I kind of designed my entire career in high school to get into West Point. I ran for class president. I hate to say it's for the sole purpose of putting on the West Point resume.
I feel like that's a better reason than other people run for class president.
Yeah, I mean, big high school, 5,000 kids. I mean, public school.
Holy shit, that's huge.
I got to, inner city kids, rich kids. I love public school. I've been to public school my whole career. But I somehow got in. Like, I got an early acceptance. I knew I was going. graduated high school in 2000, you do a little plebe somewhere. It's the time you think it's hard as shit, but looking back, it's comical. It's all like as college kids yelling at college kids, like, did you memorize how many gallons of water in Lusk Reservoir and how what's for lunch tomorrow? You're like, I'm so sorry, sir. It's like it's the college kid who's never actually done Army stuff in his life, but you don't know that, right? But 9/11 was my sophomore year, right? And so it's my first day ever of like military guard duty. They call it cadet in charge of quarters. You're just sitting at like at the clipboard. Whoever like walks in, you sign them out. And there's an active duty 03 captain in charge of every cadet company who's like, teaches you about the Army and yells at you and you have to walk hours and stuff. But he's like, Cathcart, roll out the TV. This is like when TVs were on, like, you roll them out, like on the AV cart and plug it in.
Don't forget the strap that was on the top of it.
That's right. There's like this ratchet strap, right?
Yeah, that's how I watched
like a guy
space shuttle explode in school.
The Challenger, yeah, that's right.
I mean, let's talk about the traumatic impact of that across a variety of schools.
Hey, kids, look at this. Oh, Jiminy Christmas, right.
Also, maybe let's put stuff like that on like a 30-second delay. You know what I mean? I am not a technician here, but I can think of ways that would enhance viewership safety.
Teachers all over America diving for the TV to turn it off as children.
I think they were all paralyzed. I think everybody watched together just with collective jaws
there was
on
a
the
teacher,
floor.
There was a teacher on that flight, Sally Ride.
Yeah.
She was like just a teacher that they weren't sending to space to
Are
inspire
you
educators.
guys aware of the conspiracy that they were never actually on the shuttle and they blew it up intentionally?
I am not. I am now.
I mean, you can just Google that in your own time. I'm just saying.
Okay, all right.
Maybe I'm into things that you guys aren't into. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, the moon landing was real. It's fine.
Now, I've seen a conspiracy about where it was the shuttle was empty and those people are still alive, and there's photo documentation. And it's as if people don't realize that individuals can look very similar to others, even though they've never met them. And okay,
all right. Learn something new every day.
I digress. I interrupted your introduction.
It's a good segue.
I remember O-rings were the problem.
Yeah.
And so, we watched live together as the second plane hit, like in real time. One of the planes flew over West Point. They thought we were a target, locked us down. A crazy time, but my roommate and I at the time, we looked at it, and I did major in law. It was the easiest thing possible at West Point.
Really?
Yeah.
You got that 4-year degree?
I have a Bachelor of Science because it is an engineering school in law because it was the easiest thing possible, and I was not the smartest kid in the school.
I thought for some reason law school was longer.
No. So to be clear,
He's
I
not
have
a
no law
lawyer.
degree.
You have a law degree?
It is a major you could do like American politics or international relations.
Oh, so you just studied
I studied law in order to graduate college.
How's that been helpful for you
Super
post-college?
helpful.
Just checking.
As a cavalry officer in Iraq. Actually, after that, I went to go quit West Point because I went to my roommate and I went to the TAC. We're like, hey, sir, we're going to resign and enlist because we're going to miss the war.
You were not the only people who felt like that.
And he's like, Cathcart, you're a fucking idiot. I'm like, yes, sir. He's like, trust me, there's going to be enough war to go around. I'm like, are you sure, sir? I'm like, the first one lasted like 96 hours or something like that. And so it's like, just trust me, graduate and go for it. So I ended up graduating. Branch armor, same thing. Like you don't know what you're going to do in the Army until your senior year, and they sit you according to your class rank. The smartest kid is in the front right, and the dumbest kid is in the back left. And so
I wonder if they're still allowed to do that because that is very discriminatory.
We are
and that is just really highlighting differences in people. And I think now
Are you revealing some wounds right now?
No. Well, it irritates me that some of those DEI policies have infiltrated the military service. Yeah. And honestly, I guarantee you that there are people who would argue against that because, well, what are you saying to the person who's all the way in the back? That they're not as good?
Going
and
to
the answer to
Korea
that
or
is,
Fort Polk.
yeah.
Like,
I'm saying to you, you're not as fucking good. Try harder.
Well, that's why I love the Army. It's a meritocracy, right?
We are
you can-
racking and stacking performance. Notice that you're at the tail end of the line. Draw conclusions as you see fit.
That's right. Well,
Lives are on the line.
Jesus.
So I mean, that was post night. Let's see, so you get to pick what post you are according to your class rank. Smart kids are going to Italy. The kids on the back end are going to Fort Polk, Fort Irwin, Korea, right? And so I'm in the top of the bottom half, the bottom third, right? So I get Fort Hood, Texas. I branch armor, which is one of the two maneuver ground branches in the Army, infantry and armor. And I go to the armor bicycle course, and I get a ranger slot. I want to go be a ranger.
What a weird trajectory.
What do you mean?
Oh, his gets
I mean, when
weirder.
you said armor, I'm thinking you're like commanding a tank with aviator goggles on.
Well, that's what I
Perhaps
thought,
an
too.
ascot and a scarf just flowing behind you as
I
you're
wanted,
mowing
I
shit
wanted to be
down.
Pat with my monocle and top hat, like riding on top of a tank.
Who doesn't wanna
liberating
be?
towns?
Yeah.
But in the but there's every vehicle and armor branch, right? And so you don't know what you're going to be until you graduate the basic course. And I got sent to a cavalry unit, which is at the time there was Bradley fighting vehicles and Humvees. But the doctrine of the cavalry is reconnaissance. You're in front of the infantry. You're scouting bridges, classifying bridges. Can tanks roll over it? You're kind of like the front guys. If you get seen, you call an artillery, run away. Well, we don't do that in a counterinsurgency, right? So I graduate, go to this Ranger School, Odyssey, spend 6 months in Ranger School. By the way, don't have a tab. Broke both my legs in the mountain phase by falling off a cliff. Show up to Fort Hood, immediately deploy. So my first real job ever with a W-2, besides in high school, I got paid cash under the table mowing lawns. I'm a scout platoon leader in Baghdad in 06 during the surge. Reconnaissance scout PL, Hazer platoon, here's a baseball card. I'm like, what's a baseball card? Like, you have to kill or capture this guy tonight. I was like, squeeze me?
What's his name?
Yeah.
The Iraqi equivalent of John Smith.
Yeah.
Go find him. Sweet, thanks.
Well, and I'm like,
do we have a photo? No, but here's a picture of a silhouette that maybe you could hold up next to somebody.
There's a grid coordinate. I'm like, how do we find the house off a grid coordinate? I mean, I'm green.
Meanwhile, it's a 6-digit grid, so it's 100 meters.
And I'm green as it gets, right? Like I get out the first time, and I'm like stacking on the door with a shotgun as a lieutenant, and my platoon sergeant E7, who's crusty, he grabs me by the collar and pulls me off. I was like, dude, sir, that's not your job.
Well, let me ask you this: what kind of round did you have loaded in the shotgun?
Probably a beanbag, for all I know, right? Like probably
That's bush.
not. Yeah.
Bush. Pure bush.
I mean, I want to be one of the dudes, right? But like, with
a shotgun, with a beanbag shotgun.
I'm gonna
fucking riot patrol.
I don't know what I'm doing. I think I took the shotty from an E5 and like, what are you?
God.
I learned very quickly though, right? I mean, you learn fast in situations. But it's the surge in 06, high adventure.
Yeah.
Dudes are getting killed.
Very kinetic.
IEDs everywhere.
You know what's wild is that's the opposite of the invasion. There wasn't really an IED threat. When I first went to Afghanistan,
Zero.
Yeah, we were thin-skinned vehicles. We stayed on the roads because obviously it's one of the most heavily mined countries on the face of the earth.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Iraq, we weren't necessarily worried about IEDs, especially, the penetrating type IEDs that had influence from Syria, I believe. And then
Iranians taught them how to make them, yeah.
Yeah, and then I think they pushed them through Syria on the western border. But, I mean, early on, we were going as fast as we possibly could and, not worried about people running at you with a suicide vest, not worrying about VB IEDs. You get to 06, 07, holy shit, the tapestry had changed.
Well, you talk about, that truck roll. I got, God bless them, sergeants and specialist E4s. Sir, do I shoot or not shoot? This car is racing towards us. You make a call and it's the wrong one. You kill civilians. You make a call wrong. You don't shoot and it blows up all your people. Like, that's a lot of pressure on a guy, right?
It's a lot of pressure in the moment, and I hope they have time for the rest of their life to realize you make the best decision you can with the information that you have.
That year in that platoon, we're all still healing. I tell you, 2 quick stories. This is long form. You can edit them out, but one of the first learning experiences.
Talk closer to the microphone. Remember when I told you?
Sorry,
how they
I am coachable and trainable.
Yeah.
But it does take 2 to 3 times for me to actually.
That's fine.
We're in a combat outpost, a burnout paper factory, kind of living rough. We live there, and we hear like just nonstop gunfire. It's a gunfight, but I'm like, it's not Americans up there, but there's just like cruisers going off nonstop. The guns are singing. It's crazy. I'm like, what is that? And I'm like, we got to go up there, man. It's a lot of action going on. It's not America, but what is that? It's a kilometer north, it sounds like. So we take a section, we roll up, broad daylight. It's straight up sectarian violence. There's dudes dug in, chest-deep fighting holes, beards, Wahhabi guys, foreign fighters, Shia on Sunni.
Just banging it out.
Just banging it out. It's broad day. It's an open field. I mean, it's like, I assume if you go paintballing or it's like we're practicing, I'm up and he sees me, I'm down bounding. I'm like, holy shit. Now they both look at us and unite in their hatred of America. Now they're both on us. 3 trucks, 4 dismounts, right? I mean,
yeah, but that's a solvable problem. I call that a JDAM, where they don't have that when they were fighting each other. I raise your crew serve weapon with a 2,000 pounder and checkmate.
We'll get that in an Afghan story, but Apaches come on station, we're bounding, and it's like broad daylight, and the God bless his kid from Georgia, Justin Jarrett, Specialist Jarrett, he just shoots a 2 or 3 in a guy's chest. I'm like, could you do that? And it blew the guy in half.
Yeah.
Everyone stops and looks at each other like, even the bad guys in us, like, did that just happen? Holy shit. We get them all suppressed. There's like 30 guys we just captured. I don't have enough zip cuffs. I get yelled at by my commander for not being properly equipped. All right, we got them all back in finally the Iraqi police show up. We get them all these guys in the back of the Chevy Love pickup trucks. And then one of these fighters had somehow got his flex cuffs in front of him and the blindfold's over one eye. And I'll never forget this scene for the rest of my life. One of the IPs, Iraqi police, puts his PKM Russian machine gun on the side of the truck to walk around to get in, then to guard them. Mm-hmm. And in the 15 seconds it took, this guy grabs the PKM, can't get the safety off, gets it up, shoots 2 or 3 of the guys who are on their knees, flex cuffed and blindfolded.
Some of his own guys. Call that a buddy fucker.
Points at the time, my company commander had come on station, a captain, and then he points it straight at his face. I'm like, this is in slow motion. What are we going to do? And God bless this kid. Loves soldiers. Married a stripper right before we left. But he wheels around with the 240 on top of the gun truck, drops this guy. I'm like, oh, no, it's close. Thank God. The Iraqi police response to this is to just unload on all the trucks. So I'm a first lieutenant. Iraqi police are just unloading on these guys are in blindfolded, on their knees, flex cuff behind their back. They're just mowing them down. I'm like, pretty sure this is a war crime. I'm not a genius. Yeah. I did study law at West Point briefly, but
this is just thinking headlines.
Well, I'm like, this is
Army captain.
I'm in jail forever now, right? Yeah. And so what do you do? Like, I pull out my NAMA, point at the Iraqi colonel, like, you need to stop this, or I need to end you. And so like that, after that day, that was like my first month in Iraq. I'm like, this is a real job now, right? Mm-hmm. The other deeply formative experience, we start losing guys to IEDs. Around the corner from that place we were just at, it's Satataji. They call it Sunni Beach because all of Saddam's ministers live there. Gorgeous mansions. Baghdad Bob lived there. Whoever the big guys were. I get a call that an IED maker lived there, right? And this is after our company commander had been killed in action by an EFP. We get the word that the guy that made the bomb lives in this house. And so, I have to make a decision. Do you tell the guys who it was, or we tell them it's a bad guy, we go get him? Because I don't know what's going to happen if we tell them who it is, right? Grab the guy in broad daylight, coming back, ambush initiated by a 500-pound IED. Truck in front of me is just gone. We get it suppressed, but sorry. You got to recover your dudes. Mm-hmm. On the patrol here, I decided to go that way. So the part that stays with me is I had to go find their body parts, man. That kid, Justin Jarrett, that killed the guy with the 203, I can only find his leg. Mm-hmm. You got to put it in the bag, not to be too dramatic. But we're working on the guys, and I'm trying to do first aid because there's only one section with this Black Hawk medevac lands. And I'm putting a stretcher on. They're like, get on the bird. They think I'm a medic for some reason. If I'm the platoon leader, the bird takes off. I'm on it. I'm like, my dudes are down there. We're working on the guys. This guy named James Ellis who's still intact, Cecil Nelson, Valdosta, Georgia. They think they can save him. And so, I've never seen Army medicine up close. They have some of the best surgeons in the world in the cache in Baghdad. They put this guy, Ellis, in the back of a gator from the bird, driving straight in the OR, start working on him. Dude, I'm covered in blood, sweat. I'm sure some of my own tears and just fucking rage. And I just walk into this lobby of this hospital, weapons on red, and this, God bless his specialist behind a desk. He's like, sir, you can have a weapon in here? And the way I looked at this guy, it must have been rough. And someone came out and talked to me. They offered me little Debbie snack cakes, ho-hos, and coffee. I just remember sitting down 15 minutes ago. I was working on a dude and we're in a huge fight, and 500 pounds of HME just went off. But that always stuck with me because James Ellis ended up dying in my arms. A black guy from Georgia, and to your point earlier, dude, what is all this shit worth for? How do I do something? How do I ever recover from this, right? That was my first 12-month deployment. Not to get too into it, I got to lead dudes in combat for 37 months on the ground as this big Army, conventional forces guy, GP that I call, that's general purposes. And so, but you come back from that, you train for a year, then you go back. And so I was supposed to be what they call an assistant operations officer, a talk nerd who makes the slides and the op orders. And, I'm in the
Don't forget the coffee.
The coffee. I was an office bitch the second year. So you go from that year, door kicking, but that's the career of the officer. You get to lead dudes, then you're writing plans.
It's
right?
the same in the SEAL community. You have a short operational window, and then you are lateraled out of that world.
But the cavalry, we love our little traditions with the black hats we wear and the spurs and the.
Let's be clear; those are both awesome, and I considered wearing those with my Navy uniform, and they're not authorized. So,
but you went with UDTs instead. That's a good choice.
I still think those were created as a joke. I still think those were created by a woman as a joke. I know what the military needs: 1/2 inch inseam with no liner.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's not actually. It's really not.
The chafing, I can imagine.
Just bubble gum everywhere.
I can imagine. Oh, Jesus. The Navy.
We're not the only ones that wear them.
That's true.
Ranger panties
That's true.
at least have a liner, though.
That's right. That's right.
You
I
know?
have to admit, we had the same.
The Silkies
are better than us,
is
that's
what
for
we call them. But the squad in the cavalry, we call companies, troops, and battalion squadrons, right? So we had a squadron commander. He's like, Cathcart, you suck at slides. I'm like, yes, sir. We need a major to go train and live with the Iraqi army. I'm like, all right, I'm some dumb captain. He's like, pre-company command. Cathcart, God damn it. I'm asking, do you want to go be the guy and build an advisor team? I'm like, I get to live with the Iraqis and go on patrol and stuff? Yes, sir. But of course, when every line unit is tasked to give up non-commissioned officers and soldiers, who are you going to give up in combat to go to some unknown made-up unit?
Probably your bottom performers.
Yeah, it's me and the Apple Dumpling Gang. And I love these guys. Like, one of them made eat a grenade. I mean, we lose sensitive items, but
Yeah.
we're the dirty dozen. No one wants us,
So
right?
you had like a platoon of people who resemble Sling Blade.
I like the French fried taters. Like,
Okay.
sir.
Listen,
Like,
they have a place as well. They have a place.
but you win their loyalty. And God, I love soldiers, like just dirty American soldiers. Like, you win their loyalty, they'll run through a wall for you, right? Like, we needed a tire. And I'm like, where'd you get this tire at, Sergeant? Like, he like stares blankly off. I'm like, is this the fucking Brigade Sergeant Major's tire? You steal it from his Humvee, dude? Sir, you said you need a tire. I'm like, I know, dude, but like, let's have a little situational awareness here. We're going to get rolled up.
Yeah, steal it from the skippers.
Like,
You know?
exactly.
Leave the command sergeant major alone, but definitely take it from the CO.
And so that year, I was like, I'm getting out of the Army. And I've done all these deployments. That's like squadron command. They're offering, for the first time, officers a bonus to stay in. 30 grand, stay in. I'm like, I'm getting out. I'm tired. I'm going to go to business school, make money. I thought I might go be a KSR for the agency or something like that. He's like, Cathcart, come to my office. He's wearing the hat and smoking a cigar, like out of a movie. And he's just like, I know your heart's an Alpha Troop where your company commander was killed in action. Ian Weichel. I'm like, yes, sir. He's like, I'm going to give you command of that troop. I'm like, sir, I'm getting out. I turned to my paperwork. He's like, I know. I went to the S1's office and threw it away.
I'm not sure that's legal.
That's what I said. He's like, it's not. But he's like, you're good at this shit. It's in your blood. I'm like, don't flatter me now, sir. And he's
And
like,
also, that's not how contracts work at all. At all.
I'm
Again,
no lawyer.
not a lawyer.
I'm no
but-
lawyer. I did, to be fair, I tried. He's like, let me tell you something else. It's top secret. And it was at the time. It's like, you're going to be the first ever mechanized unit commander in Afghanistan. You'll take this troop to Afghanistan. I was like, God damn it, sir. So I didn't get the bonus because I already passed it. There's no retroactive. So I stayed in because I just love America. And I got to take a troop to Afghanistan. Which is an amazing year and a million stories, but 150 dudes in Afghanistan. But the highlight of that was what you were talking about earlier, availability operations, and a lot comes to kind of the work we're doing now. I'm a general purpose, regular dude, no special anything. I am airborne qualified. I do have 7 jumps out of an aircraft. But I had 3 combat outposts that cost about 1,500 square kilometers in Afghanistan, and I was like, dude, I can't secure this.
What province were you in?
Baghdad and Herat. I had 2 commands.
Okay. Are those up in the Northwest?
Northwest, yep.
Okay.
I mean, I actually drove into Tajikistan once. I was like, we can't be here. We just invaded another country. Let's turn around.
I mean, did you invade or did you visit?
I visited.
Did you report it over the radio?
I did
Did
not.
the Blue Force tracker happen to be off at the time? There are ways that I can help you avoid.
They're coming in broken, right? It was.
Blue Force tracker.
It's like when I called into the talk and when I was a platoon leader in Iraq, I'm like, we have 19 KIA POWs. And like, what'd you say? I was like, we have 19 KIA EPWs. Like, no, that doesn't make sense. You can't have killed in action POWs. I'm like, well, they were blindfolded and handcuffed or whatever. And like, you're like, dude, get off the net. Get off the net now.
I was going to say things you don't say over the radio for 500, Alex.
I learned that later. Like,
Yeah.
dude, Jack was fast for bringing to the top, Cathcart. What are you doing? Anyway. So in Afghanistan, I got to make friends with the tribes. These guys, they're Mujahs. They fought the Russians. These guys are crusty and hard. And some difference in Iraq and Afghanistan. Afghans can fight, dude. They can fight.
I don't know if they necessarily have more technical competence. In my experience, they're more game to fight.
That's true. I'll buy that.
Like if they get their toes up on the line, they're going to drive forward. Whereas a lot of the times in Iraq, they would only fight if you had them pinned. You know, like if they didn't have anywhere else they could go and they knew that they were cornered, they would fight. But if they had an opportunity to run, which I'm not saying is a bad idea, and run and fight again another day, they would take it.
Yeah.
Afghans are like, maybe fuck yourself.
Well, the thing about Afghans, like unlike Iraq, is all Shia Sunni. They are a clan and they're a tribe for anyone else.
Yes.
And so, I had Pashtuns and Tajiks and some Uzbeks, And I just from smoking hookah and eating lamb meat, and they ask me why I don't have any wives, and they have 3, and and I'm like, I don't know. It's a crazy.
I would
question.
flip that question, be like, why the fuck do you have 3 wives? You know.
And they have this thing called Nassoir. You ever heard of Nassoir?
No.
It's servers in a dip. They take a tobacco leaf, they dry it in the sun, and they grind it into a powder.
No. This is the type of shit when people offer you, I'm like, get away from me with that. No.
I won and influenced friends my ability to consume this because then you mix it with wood ash. Just you burn wood and mix it in, and then the
that
key
seems
ingredient
safe to mix something with you're going to consume.
is lye, which is straight up corrosive poison.
Have you seen Apocalypse Now?
Have you done a full body scan to see if you have things like growing inside of you?
I probably do.
You need to get a health screening immediately.
It's like Cope snuff times 1,000.
God.
But they were so impressed that I could do it. They take their hands and open my mouth and like Americi Commandante Nassoir, and they throw it in my mouth and they're like, oh my God, you can do it. And that, while discussing that small ability to consume their powerful tobacco product, they're like, you're okay with us. I'm like, all right, I guess. So that grew into where now I'm like, when USAID's like, where should we build a school? I'm like, this guy's village, right? And you need gas for your motorcycle. Here's some JP8, and come on patrol with me once. Let's just see what happens. It's not legal, but now there's dudes on motorcycles running Recon up routes. They're zooming around the ridge lines, pulling security. You can't really control them, but you can point them in a direction and hope there's no war crimes. That it grew and grew till there's a couple hundred dudes. And Petraeus at the time was the head of Afghanistan. He heard about this stuff and was sent a guy out to do a case study on this. How does 4th Infantry Division mechanized have tribes? I'm like, Nassoir, gasoline, relationships. We have common interests, right? Let's do this, right?
By with and through.
The other thing we did was, let's spend the night in your village. Set up patrol bases, guys. No one ever sets up patrol bases anymore. It's a lost art. Man up patrol bases. We're spending the night. We're spending 3 days here. It's going to be a rough living, but we're going to deny the enemy territory, and we're going to be friends now. Okay, so, I get invited to this VSO conference at Leatherneck in Kabul. Never been to Kabul? I'm the only guy in uniform. It's like I walk into I'm not a Star Wars guy, but the Star Wars bar, everyone's wearing Patagonia. Some guys are dressed like they're Afghans. They're orange and KEG and all these other letters. And this guy walks up and he's like, hey, sir, you lost? I don't want to say I have a chip on my shoulder as much as a fucking cinder block at this point. I'm just like, is this the super secret General Petraeus VSO Stability Conference on how to work with tribes? Is this your invitation too? Yeah, I'm supposed to be here, guy. And so, Minister was at that, but went back, and all that led to this clearing of the Taliban capital Baghdad's province. I'm in war story mode now, but we had built this coalition of 700 people, and we're going to roll out and clear this village. They know we're coming. There's lots of us leaving the Baghdad's airfield. Mostly Afghan. I think it was, probably 50 Americans and, 600 some odd Afghans, militia, Afghan police, national police, some NDS guys. We get to the village, take it over. No one's there. It's abandoned. It's a ghost town. I'm like, this was too easy. Something's up, dude. Something is up. Of course, at that night, every side is just raining down fire upon us. You're pointing about JDAMs. Immediately, we're in contact. Afghans turn on their pickup truck, their headlights to get a better shot. Immediately sucks up an RPG. Everyone's killed inside. Afghan Kandak commander, the battalion commander, super bummed. I'm like, hey, come here, sir. Look at this little computer screen I got. Because the guys that had gone 10 kilometers north and are on a campfire drinking tea and high-fiving and dancing. They killed Afghan commandos. We had kept PID from an Apache to an F-16. I'm like, I don't know how this works. I got JTACs. Just laser on that thing and let's blow those guys up. I said, actually, you know what? Come here, Kandak commander. I was like, get on the radio and say, not to be too on the nose, fucking cleared hot and give him
There's a reason why I picked that side in the verbiage.
Right, cleared hot, authenticate, give him my initials, just say Golf Delta Charlie, release ordnance. And JDAM on top of those dudes. He got to watch it on the screen. And I can't bring your boys back, but you just ended their life. So I hope that's something for you, right? The whole night goes down. The next morning, we're so far removed that there's no radio. Satellite radios are we don't know how they work. They lost the field. There's no. My only reporting mechanism is BFT, FIPR messages. It's like text messaging. I'm like, I'm alive. Okay.
LOL.
BRB. Right? So the talk is freaking
Miss
out.
you.
Yeah, because they haven't heard from me in a day. I have a satellite phone, but forgot the charger back at the base. So it's dead. I said
it's a power move.
I was like, I've literally no comms. But I said every Afghan governor has 2 Russian HIPS helicopters. you fucking load those hips up. You need Afghan dead bodies out of here because they're sitting in the hot sun. The Afghans bad for morale. They're out of food and water and bullets. So this Russian hip lands. And I didn't know this was a thing. There was an American Air Force crew chief on it.
Oh, interesting.
I was like, dude, God bless. Dude, you got some cojones flying with an Afghan pilot and a 80-year-old Russian helicopter. But it was a scene because the ridge lines were smoking, right? They're loading on bodies. They're pushing out chickens. They're pushing out bottles of water. And like this guy just gets out and doesn't say a word and just tears start streaming down his face. I mean, it's post-battle, right? I mean, it's smoke and fire and death. And I say that because in the middle of that fight, I'm on a rooftop and I'm pretending to be special. I have a baseball hat on and no uniform top, and I'm drinking coffee and calling in airstrikes. And like, I just remember thinking in the middle of all that, and this is like obviously high intensity, high adventure, but I was like, this is the most important I'll ever be in my whole life. Fuck. This is in contact during this symphony of violence. Like, this is the most important thing I will ever do in my life. And I was like, I mean, it was short. I was like, dude, get back in this. You're in a legit combined arms fight. But that never left me. Is like, I hope that's, and then of course we left Afghanistan. What happened afterwards? I'm like, dude, that sucks, right? And so,
You're talking about the withdrawal?
Yeah, I mean,
it has nothing to do with us.
You're right.
And that's one of the biggest mistakes that people make, in my opinion, is they derive their value of service based on how we exited Afghanistan.
You're right.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know about the two of you, but I certainly wasn't consulted. And I did the absolute best I fucking could every single day.
Well, I'm sure you did amazing. And that's why I love Vietnam guys, because...
but you got to let it go.
Yeah.
You have to let go that decision was made. What pisses me off about it is that nobody was held accountable. And everybody points to the politicians for that one. Fuck that. I want to see some flag officers with their shit ripped off and held accountable.
I mean, a lot of it is when I show up and I'm training the Iraqis in my year, they're all red. They can't do anything by themselves. But when I leave, they're all green. They're all the best on their own. But the guy behind me inherits them. They're all red. It's this cycle of they're ready on their own. Obviously, they're not. So I'm trying to get the army out of the army again. Last gig, and it'll get to what we're doing here, is that like they made me the aide de camp to a general. I was like, what does that even mean? I'm getting out of the army.
That means you get to wear one of those tassel things, doesn't it?
It's the big gold thing.
That's what I'm talking about. I don't even know what it means, but I want one. I would wear one of those in my uniform with the cowboy hat.
It's some flair, dude. It's some flair. But like, you're right.
And UDTs.
And nobody knows what it means, but they know it means something.
You're like, what do you do? I'm like, I don't even know. I'm like part speechwriter, part travel agent, part whipping boy. Yeah. But I got to like work for like an awesome dude and be in big rooms while like those flag officers are making decisions, and you're like in the back taking notes on your little BlackBerry or whatever.
I have always wondered what the decisions. I have still to this day. Like one of the people I would love to talk to is George Bush Jr. And just be like, hey man, let's cut the bullshit. Yeah. Talk to me about the conversations you had in arriving at the decision points for Afghanistan and Iraq. I would love to know about the conversations that were had, the air in that room, to be a fly on the wall, because I want to know how much thought they put into the human capital that's going to go into it.
They didn't, I guarantee you, right?
That is my suspicion, but I would love to have been able to experience it and have that knowledge firsthand.
You know, I mean, nation building is a hard business. He's done that, right, in war and in Africa with Nehru International. The military, as you said, the military used to take and hold ground to win wars. Building a nation, building a democracy is not what we're meant to do.
They're not a tool for it, no.
And so, you know, we lost 8 guys in a suicide vest in a forward brigade, one of the 4ID brigades. And he said, you know, he's going to lead to be the RC East commander, command half of Afghanistan on the PAC border. We had briefings at the agency, the White House, the Pentagon. I'm kind of excited to go to these cool buildings, these cool people. And anytime an American soldier is killed, there must be a flag officer present. That's just a rule they made. And usually it's the National Guard guy, the reserve, whoever lives closest goes. He looked at me, he said, Cathcart, we're going to go to all 8 of those funerals. I was like, sir, like, we got to go to the CIA, the White House. And he looked at me in a way that like I knew that I had stepped in it. He's just like, I'm sorry. Are you in charge of the 4th Infantry Division now? Did I not get that memo, Cathcart? You call me crash because I bump into stuff and I'm, whatever.
So then this is where my career would have ended, because I would have said, yes. Did you not check your inbox?
He fired me twice, but I found out later his wife kept like, give Garrett another chance. He's trying really hard. Which is true, by the way. But where, he gets on a knee and gives a flag to every mother and every widow and every kid. And I read the thing, dude, it eats you. It eats you alive. You're in 8 cities in the period of 2 weeks, and you do this over and over. And like, we're at some Applebee's drinking beers in the middle of nowhere, Oregon. And I'm like, sir, he's like, what do you want to do, Garrett? You want to get out and you could be a battalion commander? I'm like, this time Petraeus is DCI, and I was like, I want to go be Jason Bourne. He's like, no, you don't. That's not even real. I was like,
that last part of the sentence is very accurate.
guys that know, right? And so, a long story, but I ended up, getting a conditional offer, getting poly, going down the pipeline, living in San Clemente with a girl for a while after I got out of the Army, not knowing how long a pipeline it is. In the interim, I got a job in medical device sales in Beverly Hills to make a shit ton of money because I thought that's the way to be better. That's the way to transition. But like very quickly being just like miserable as shit. I'm taking neurosurgeons to dinner and they want to hear war stories. And so they buy my stuff and I'm telling them stories about where guys I love were killed to buy. Like, this is the worst. Why am I unhappy? Right. And then I got a call from one of those guys that was the guy that studied me in Afghanistan. Hey, we're starting a nonprofit for veterans, dude. You should help us. I'm like, dude, like I'm a veteran. Frankly, I don't care about veterans. I'm not working in nonprofit. I don't want to be poor. I love you, bud, but hard pass. Thanks for thinking of me. And I went and volunteered with these guys in LA. It was called Team Red, White, and Blue. And it was simply about building community, building relationships, getting fit, positive post-traumatic growth. Like, hey, you were awesome, but you can still be awesome. Don't live in the past. And I was like, this is what I miss. I didn't know the words. I miss the brotherhood, the camaraderie, the community, the purpose, everything I didn't know that I needed. And so like now I'm like, dude, this is awesome. Moved to Atlanta, take the gig. And they're probably at the agency in some warehouse. So like, have you ever mishandled class information? I'm like, yeah, all the time. That was not the right answer. I was quietly like, go from that program.
Have you ever taken anything home from work? And you're like, well, funny you should ask. Are we talking batteries or are we talking other?
We're talking AT4s.
I mean, Jesus. I mean, let's not get crazy. Like maybe some 9mm rounds, you know?
So now I'm doing nonprofits, so building community. We ended up being the fastest growing post 9/11 veteran nonprofit in the country. But I'm still like really mad that the agency let me go. I'm like, if you don't want me, maybe the FBI will. So I apply to them. And I go through the whole process. And, their reputation is being a little more kind of hard-nosed, disciplined. And it says here that you miss out. I'm like, you guys talk to each other? Holy cow, I didn't know. They're like, yeah, of course. But then they're like, but did you try to sell it or do anything? I'm like, no, dude, it was a map of a battle I fought, and I wanted to take home. And I get home, of course, it's FOU. It's not even classified. I was just so nervous I was misspeaking. The FBI is like, all right, special agent training, your report June 6th, D-Day. And I was like, I think I like this veteran thing more, actually. I don't. And at the time, I was watching the show FBI with Priyanka Chopra. I was like, is this how it works? My friends at the FBI are like, dude, no, it's not even close, you idiot. Like, it's all paperwork. I was like, all right. And so I stayed up,
That's actually really not the way to sell the job either. Like, no, it's not like the TV show. It's only paperwork. Like,
I'm out.
Pass?
Yeah.
Hard pass.
Yeah, I'll take door number 2, regardless of what's behind it.
and that led to one of the founders of the Home Depot, who was he's probably the largest private donor to veteran causes in the country, Bernie Marcus. Mm-hmm. Cathcart, like, we want to build a nonprofit, and this is where it's reversed. Here's the money up front. There's a bunch of veterans, probably 2 or 3 million, that are not connected to the VA. They're mostly young guys. How do we get their voice together and go advocate on policy issues for them, and also tell their story, and also change the narrative of veterans country that we're not all broken, we don't all have PTSD, that like you can go be awesome after service, and not just tell your stories in Iraq or Afghanistan. That's all you're ever going to be. So that was called Mission Roll Call. We built that, and then this guy, he was like, Cathcart, I heard your name. He comes back from Africa to go to the first ever Presidential Leadership Scholars Program. It's like, it's a big deal. It's the first one. And he comes back, and I'll let you pick it up about what you see when you get in 2015 and how we kind of met and all that kind of stuff. But I'm living the dream as a professional veteran, as I say, my second veteran nonprofit. Yeah. When he calls me, he's like, hey, you know about veteran stuff, and let me get your pick your brain. I'm like, all right, dude, what's your idea? What do you need?
I'd say we jump to what brings you guys here today. Skip the interim step.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what it is that you guys are trying to do, because I think it's timely, and I want to spend the time necessary to dig into it as much as possible.
Right. So when I came back from Africa, I'd been living overseas for like 15 years. First downrange as a Marine in combat, and then, living in these villages for 7.5, almost 8 years off the grid, building out this organization to stop the spread of ISIS and Al-Qaeda. And when I came back here, man, I was shocked by what I saw. I did not recognize the country that we all left to fight for in 2000. There was this crazy hatred and divisiveness. People were tearing themselves apart, tearing each other apart. I mean, Americans hating Americans.
Are you talking about last week or when you came back?
No, dude, this was 2015.
Yeah.
This was, I thought it was bad then.
Do you guys have a sense of when that started?
I mean, I would say the tipping point was probably around 2010 when
Okay.
things started getting pretty bad.
Because I think we can all feel it. It's our
Yeah.
team versus your team, forgetting we're on the same team.
That's exactly right.
Neighbor fighting neighbor. But I have not been able to really put a pin into why it started and how it got so bad.
Well, it's been, in my humble opinion, it's been an evolution over time of a couple
As most things are.
Yeah, of a couple things. One is the what I would call geographic sorting. So people started with the access to be able to kind of move across the country, the dissemination of information more rapidly, the rise of social media. People start moving around the country and kind of congregating in areas of people who think like them and come from the same backgrounds, et cetera. And we also kind of lost what I call the civic fabric in our country. So think about like Rotary Club, the VFW, Lions Club, those kinds of things, churches where people used to kind of come together and meet other people in their community who are not necessarily like them. People don't do that shit anymore. They're not actually coming out and getting together anymore.
How come?
I think it's because of fear. You know, at the same time, we had this kind of geographic sorting and this kind of like, there was a guy named Robert Putnam that wrote this book called Bowling Alone. It was the concept that, you know, people used to come together in like bowling leagues and have teams and they bring clubs and you actually met other Americans all the time. That's not happening anymore. And as that happened, another effect started happening, which is people started running for a political office to become famous. They wanted to be on the news. They wanted to get likes on social media. It began to be, you know, a great kind of center for power and influence because of the rise of, I mean, social media. It's not the evil to end all evils, but it is an enabler for a lot of these problems that we're seeing. And
Yeah,
so
I'm not sure it's a net positive.
I personally don't believe that it is, but it is definitely fueling the polarization and partisanship.
Have you guys seen, Michael, double check me on this. I swear it was 42 district attorneys or attorney generals of states in the U.S. are trying to get a warning label associated with social media use for teenagers because of the addictive nature. I think it was 42, but Michael, if you could double check.
Yeah.
I only see that accelerating, I hope, in that label being put on that.
Yeah.
Because I've seen the influence it has on my own kids. Mm-hmm. It's fucking addicting, for one. And it is not the real world.
It's not. And people are getting more and more isolated. You know, they're getting removed from one another. We need human contact. And I saw something else happening. It's a tactic we used in combat. So you know how they used to dehumanize the enemy, right? It was actually a tactic we used. That's happening here. So media celebrities, politicians are dehumanizing the other side to make them easier to hate.
I have a perfect example of this from, I'll call it the second assassination attempt on Trump.
Yeah.
And he said that the rhetoric from the left is what is causing him to get shot at. Meanwhile, they are the ones destroying the country from inside and out. And my analogy was, dude, you're in a pool watching somebody whip their dick out, pissing in it, complaining that you don't like that, but underwater through your shorts, you're pissing everywhere. You're complaining about rhetoric while participating in rhetoric.
That's
and
right.
then people on both sides of that, well, our side's telling the truth,
Right.
and we have to stop this other side, so that makes it okay.
Right.
What does the other side say? Well, our side's telling the truth because of this existential threat. We have to figure out a way to upend that cycle because the dehumanizing, I do think, is real. Do I think it's causing crazy people do crazy shit? Do I think it's causing people to shoot at Trump? I don't know if there's a direct correlation, but it's certainly not helping. I think it's safe to say that.
I found this kind of like dramatically increasing sense of hatred and fear. And to me, personally, it made me really sad, man. Like all of us have been downrange how long, how many years fighting for the idea of America against our enemies, ISIS and Al-Qaeda, only to realize when I got back here, it's not going to be them that defeats us. It's going to be us. Like we're tearing ourselves apart while our enemies are sitting on the sidelines laughing. And if we don't get our shit together, we're going to be in a soup sandwich here really fast. So I got really pissed off. I thought, well, look, I'm not about to watch my buddies pay the ultimate sacrifice to watch ourselves, tear ourselves apart here at home. I wanted to do something, and I had some mentors who were like, "Hey, you should run for office." I thought that was a really bad idea. I was never going to do that. There's got to be a better way. And so I had some donors who've been working with me for about 8 years. So we've been able to raise about $60 million over that time to kind of build the work in Africa. And they were like, hey, we're shifting our money, our philanthropy into this new space to try to figure out a way to build out more of a center and help unite the country, because we've got kids now and we're worried they're not going to have a democracy left to inherit. And we've got to figure something out. And you were this kind of weirdo who didn't know anything about poverty. You kind of built this model that disrupted the industry. Would you take a look now at the politics industry here in the U.S.? Is there a new way? Is
That's
there a new
good
approach?
word for it. The politics industry. I
It's
actually
an
haven't
industry.
heard it described as that.
It's a whole industry.
Did you find it, Michael? I see you messing around with the little slide over there. You're
It's
teasing me. I see it in the corner of my eye. He's such a tease. 40. That's right. Oh, fuck yeah.
Wow.
Look at that.
You know what that means? Every once in a while, a blind pig can find shit. Yeah, 42 attorney generals joined together on Monday to call Congress passed legislation implementing Surgeon General Vivek Murthy's proposal to require official warnings on social media platforms. Yes, I support this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does it solve the problem? No. Is it a step in the right direction? Yes.
It is. It actually has to be a multifaceted approach. And so I wanted to, like I said, I wanted to do something. I was hell bent on doing something now here at home. I wanted to make sure that what I had built overseas would survive the transition. I had amazing teams. You know, we brought together operators and aid workers to help stop the spread of ISIS in some key places. It was really working and scaling. And so I put a 12-month transition plan in place, handed off the reins to the new CEO in June of 2020. I didn't have to worry. They're actually crushing it. I think they just had to get rid of me probably. And then in July of 2020, I stood up this new entity called More Perfect Union. To do this, the whole concept, I'll give you a 30,000-foot view of what we're trying to do. We saw this, what we believed was a great untapped strategic asset for the country that we were not using. And that was our brave men and women coming home from the wars in Afghanistan, Iraq, overseas, who were coming home. They were getting into the job market. They were doing, they were being successful in their careers, but they were a little bit lost. They needed purpose and meaning. Essentially, they needed a new hill to take. And there's no greater hill to take right now, in my opinion, than helping save our democracy in this moment. We fought against our enemies overseas to protect the idea of America, and now we've got to fight here at home for it. And there's nobody better positioned to do that than our veteran population. And so what I decided to do was, what if, and veterans, we're still one of the most trusted entities in the country. People on the left and right trust veterans. And so the idea we had was, hey, let's recruit some top vets from around the country, and let's train them up with some skills that they need at this program that we partner with the University of Montana, actually, in Missoula.
Okay.
And it's a 5-day training package, and we equip them with the skills to roll out our model.
My son goes to college in Bozeman, so I can't support this program. Because apparently those two schools are mortal enemies.
Apparently, I hear
The
that.
Bobcats versus the Grizz. I have to be Team Bobcat. I'm sorry.
I will say the institution that shall not be named.
Yes.
That way you can listen.
I'm just joking.
And so we train and equip these guys and gals, and then they go back to their home states to launch what we call brickyard operations. So we call them a brickyards because it's building the country back brick by brick. This is our version of chapters, right? And so the idea is we're taking veterans and also public servants, so people who have been in the Peace Corps, AmeriCorps, who have served the greater idea of America in the past in their career. And we're basically using a lot of the skills we use overseas. It's counterinsurgency skills. We're going into these communities. We're mapping out the power dynamics in the community, who's controlling the power, who's the influencers. We're bringing together folks in the left and right into these chapters and in these brickyards to do three types of activities. There's 3 pillars. First, we start with basic social connection activities to build understanding. So that's like fitness challenges, potluck dinners, concerts. It's people coming together to have fun.
Yeah.
Right. Second, then they start doing community service projects. Now, these are service projects sourced from the community. We don't go out there and build a playground in every community because a lot of communities don't need that. What do they want? What do they need? And the members of the community tell us what they need, and they come together to do that action. We're getting our hands dirty together. We're sweating together. We're breaking bread together. It's Americans physically coming together to do good. And by doing that, we're building trust. So first, we're building understanding. Second, we're building trust. And the final activities that we do to build ownership in our country and in democracy. These are our civic education programs. So it's about, yes, we have a lot of rights as American citizens, but we also have responsibilities.
Yeah.
it is upon us to make the country that we want to see for our kids. This is a country of, by, and for the people, and we can't wait for people in Washington to solve these problems. Like, we, the people, have to do it.
I don't think they're capable of doing it at this point.
No. Yeah. I mean, we have to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Regular people have to do it. And so, I didn't know how to build a movement. I'd heard about this knucklehead who'd built a lot of veteran movements. And so I tricked him into coming to join me. I called them advising sessions, where he was giving me advice, and then I just basically slipped an offer letter to him and stole him from his employer. And it worked out. Yeah, it's great.
You're building force multipliers.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And it is taken off, man. There's a hunger in this country. People, you know how it is, in a time of fear and paralysis, people need to see action. They need to see leadership, and they need to get moving to do something. We're giving Americans something to do. Yeah. We're giving them, and we're giving veterans a new hill to take to get out of this kind of lack of purpose and meaning and do something. Let's retake agency. There's a pandemic loss of agency in this country, and Americans need to feel like and know that they can change their situation. So they're getting involved. In the past 2 years, we've quietly built a movement of over 10,000 people, 31 sites around the country. We have unique access in a lot of rural communities that a lot of other groups don't have, because it appeals, the veteran kind of brand appeals to a lot of rural communities. I come from a rural community myself, and it's also appealing to the veteran community. We've got a lot of veterans coming out saying, "Hey, sign me up. How do I get involved? I want to be a part of taking my country back." And we believe this is the moment. We're living in a moment right now, and I don't say this with hyperbole. We could lose everything we fought for.
What do you think that would look like? I was talking with somebody the other day, and we talked about whether or not we're reaching this precipice. What do you guys think that would actually look like, losing the democracy?
If we stay in these silos where we don't understand each other, then we become vulnerable to leaders who will spew hate and rhetoric at us, and we'll believe whatever they tell us. And we will follow that to the point where it's going to divide us permanently as a nation. I think it starts out with these lone wolf acts of violence across the country, which then could potentially turn into larger scale violence, and then eventually, God help us, like runaway violence that could, it's not going to be a large scale civil war like we had in the 1860s. However, it could look like militias mobilized against other units across the country, where there could be violence in pockets across the country. Now, that's an ugly proposition. It is a very ugly proposition, but that, honestly, and I'm not trying to fearmonger, but if we don't do something to stop it, that's where we're heading. And I think it requires two things. We need real leaders to step up and help lead the country.
Agreed.
I make fun of Washington, but we need real leaders. I mean, we need guys like you, like others who have. I know you're not going to do it.
Let's just go ahead and
I'm
pick a different example.
No, I'm saying
stop
that.
You right there, sir.
I'm not trying to convince you. However, I'm saying that we need men and women who understand the cost of freedom, who are servant leaders, to step up and lead.
I would be assassinated almost immediately, and I'm going to tell you why. I think we have to reshape the size and scope of the government. And one of the first things that I would do is fucking yank power from a lot of organizations and shit can people.
Yeah, well, I mean...
And they don't like that.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. But I will say that I believe the answer is servant leadership. I believe we need it at the national level, and I believe we need it at the community level.
Yeah. The problem with that in our current structure is that the servant leadership has to be towards the people that elected them into office and not for themselves.
Yeah, that's right.
And so one of the things that I think, and I've said this quite a bit, is I think we have to institute a few changes. One of them is term limits. Mm-hmm. We have to limit people. I look at politics now as something like a medication, and all medications have a warning label on them because we've determined the safe dosage before it starts having negative impacts on the human body. I think the most altruistic person who finds themselves in politics, if you play in that shit for long enough, I don't think you're the same person. Mm-hmm. And I also think, though, that environment and that desire for power, like it's this chicken or egg. Are people corrupted by politics, or does politics corrupt people, or is it both? Do the people who are susceptible to that find their way into it because they want to be in power, or if you play in that shit for long enough, you're just covered in the toxic material? How about we strip away how long you can be associated with that? Because I think it is dangerous.
Yeah.
2, we have to get rid of this bullshit the way that we pass laws and put bills that we vote upon, single issue bills is something that I think would make a massive difference. Because you hear people arguing.
Yeah, no more omnibus bills. Yeah.
Oh my God, you hear people, you shot down the border security bill. I'm like, well, yeah, but these people are calling it the Ukrainian funding bill because inside of which one of these? Because you could easily switch out the other one. So what we need to, you know what I mean? And we have to limit that ability. I mean, I think those two things in and of themselves, and a really hard look at the size of our government, potentially reducing the size of the government would make a huge difference.
I agree with you. I think it's going to take a multifaceted strategy attacking different flanks to solve the problem we're in right now.
Yeah.
There's a political solution, and then there's a nationwide kind of community solution. What we're operating on right now at More Perfect Union is we're really focused on grassroots, ground up, local leaders, local communities, kind of getting ourselves out of the situation. I do want to tell you about one thing that we're actually doing in the moment, because as we approach the election, as you might know, there's an election coming up on November 5th.
I haven't heard so far.
Right.
It really hasn't been on the news.
It's not in the news. It's probably you probably haven't heard of it.
I enjoyed the several days in between the 2020 and 2024 elections. And I am not joking when I say several days, that the discussion on every major platform was not an election.
That's right.
It seemed like it was seconds.
Well, and to that point, the closer we get, the rhetoric is ramping up.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of fear. And so we kind of got together and we thought, okay, we're positioned in this moment. We're building this movement, this veteran-led movement, and let's get people doing something right now. And when I give talks and stuff around the country, people always ask me in the Q&A, hey, what can I do? What can one person do? The first thing I say, go find somebody in your network, in your community, in your family who is on the other side of the political aisle. Buy them a cup of coffee. Sit down with them and have a conversation.
Yeah.
Talk about what you care about. Talk about what the country means to you. Try to find common ground. It's really hard to hate somebody if you're sitting across the table from them. And so what we decided to do was, do you remember the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge?
Yeah.
Back in 2014?
I did not participate.
I didn't. I think I was overseas at the time, but
whether I was or wasn't,
I think you were cold enough in buds.
I'm more than happy to write you a check.
Yeah.
I'm going to skip the ice bucket portion.
So we are not doing ice, but we decided to do something called the Coffee and Courage Challenge, right? So the concept is this is something anybody can do. Every American, go out, find somebody on the other side of the aisle, have that cup of coffee with them, talk about what the American dream means to you, shoot a 30 to 60-second video on your iPhone, post it to your social media, tag 3 friends.
What about Android users? Excuse me. I mean, we can agree that they're, as a class of
The green
That's
bubbles?
a great catch.
not an
That is a great
economic
catch.
class of people, but as a quality Homo sapien, they're at a lower class, right? Because they fuck up my blue text
group
thread.
I mean, it's green. It's green, right?
Okay, so, I mean, are they allowed to participate?
They're allowed, yes.
Okay.
Shoot a video.
In this instance, I will make that exception.
Okay,
Most
good.
of the time, I prefer they fuck right off. So
Maybe that's your courage. The other side of the aisle is green and blue
That's right.
bubbles,
That's right.
here's the real mission for you iPhone users. Go find an
an
Android
Android
user,
user, yeah.
and try as hard as you can to find common ground. You may not find much. You're going to have different views on the world for sure.
Well, shoot that video. Post
On
it
your iPhone,
on your
please.
on your iPhone or Android or flip phone, and post it to your social. Tag 3 friends and get them involved. Tell them to take the challenge. Like I really believe in this moment. It's not hard to do that.
Yeah.
And what we'd like to see is millions of Americans coming out of their silos just to get together. Get together for an hour with somebody you don't know. That alone is something, right? It's not going to solve the problem. It's not going to save America, but it's a way to get us out and get moving.
It'll also highlight, and this is anecdotal, but I think, so whatever Team Blue, Team Red, whatever you want to call yourself, other than the people who are at the extreme fringes, of which there are people at the extreme fringes, but it's not most, I think most people share an immense overlap of values.
Yeah.
You would never know that.
But it's not newsworthy because it's not, clickbait. It's not what we get along.
You would never
it's
know
not
it.
on the news.
You would never know it if your interactions are only on social media.
Well, that's the whole point of this organization, Andy, right? It's like, it's not for veterans, it's for all Americans, right? It's led by, we got probably 70% veteran leadership because we are a convening authority, we're leaders, we work together, no matter the background, the whole thing. But go to our baseball game in Colorado. we'll buy a beer in the pub. The first pint, we'll buy barbecue. You know, there's a great story about a small town in Texas I could tell about one of our events. But how often do you meet someone you don't know that's not in your bubble? Mm-hmm. Right? Because I'm on my Facebook page, watching my news station, listening to whatever podcast. Like I'm in my bubble of thought. But I meet a good dude who's Dev Grew. I'm like, wait, what? Like we have a bond, I'll listen to you, right? Because I know who you are. Maybe we'll build something together and serve the community of Kalispell together. Like, you're not going to change my perspective, but I know who you are as a human being now.
Or maybe you'll learn something.
Or I'll learn something.
There's something to be learned from everybody. I will talk about politics with people, but I won't engage in a political debate or discussion. I'll ask a bunch of questions and I'll listen. And oftentimes, I do this like my dad and I. I would say he trends more to the left, and he'll be the first to tell you, he's like, I don't actually recognize the Democratic Party. Some really weird shit has happened. It seems like the left became right and the right became left. And even that. We disagree on a bunch of stuff. Yeah. And we can have like a full, like sweeping conversation over coffee or dinner. He drinks hot chocolate with his stage 2 diabetes that he thinks he has. He clearly doesn't even understand. He told me he got a stage 2 diabetes diagnosis. I'm like...
I've got diabetes 1, 2, and 3. I'm
like, do you mean? I said, do you mean type 2? And then I had to call my sister, who's a nurse practitioner, and she said he barely met the metric for being pre-diabetic on blood work. He said, I have terminal diabetes, and we back and forth. And it's like, I don't love the guy any less. Yeah. And there are so many times where it's like we're two of those little marbles bouncing against each other, but not in a destructive way. It's just our ideology may not align.
Yeah. Like, and that's okay, right? Like,
cool.
That's what makes us. I mean, that's what makes us so great as Americans. I mean, it is our differences that can actually be our strength. But we have this common foundation of values that there's so much more that unites us and divides us. People have forgotten what it means to be Americans. You know, we always talk about these 6 core values that we really, think that America needs right now to come together: service, virtue, mercy, humility, courage, hope. These are things that we all can come around. Yep. You know, there's a lot that unites us, man, but we've forgotten that. So people just need to be reminded. They need to see that you don't have to hate that other person because of the political party they're affiliated with. Since when does that become our identity? Yeah. You know, we're not an R or a D, we're an A. We're Americans, right? And when we come together and we can begin to see that, we're going to be so much stronger. We can take on it. America, I mean, the world right now, I believe, needs the idea of America more than ever. And I agree. And it needs our leadership. But we are so busy navel-gazing right now and tearing each other apart, we can't get out of our own way.
I plan to use that phrase probably daily now, because I don't know if I've ever used it, but navel-gazing seems to me to be something that's appropriate once a day.
I'm going to start using, you're pissing in the pool, but I'm pissing in it too, but I'm standing it. Well, that was a gold star analogy, man, right? Like,
I ask people this when they get really, I ask them about, there are some people who are really open. Like if you're a Republican or Democrat and you're on the other side, it's fuck you. Like you're a bad person. And I always say, have you ever been a first responder in an accident? Have you ever come up on a car wreck and somebody needs help? Most people have, in some degree. And I ask them, did you ever stop and look at the back to see what kind of bumper stickers they had? Yeah. And they say no. And I said, well, why not? Yeah. And they're like, well, you know, it's somebody that needs help. I'm like, you're right. It's your fellow American that needs help. And we are fucked if we ever get to the place where the first stop is
what kind of American are you?
Correct. We're fucked if we ever get to that spot where people would actually take the time to stop and like, oh, you have a Trump versus fill in the blank, something with a blue backing or something with a red backing, and they change their behavior. Most people in their everyday lives, if you talk to them about encounters, they're not actually thinking politically forward. They get stuck in this place, though, where it's like on repeat and everything has to be viewed through that lens. We have to get out of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
To be fair, like we never talk politics directly in this organization. This is a service and civic organization. Yeah. The genius is, behind it, the veteran in a city, they make the relationships with the tribe, so to speak, or the people. And then you're building something for someone else. I'm going to know you. I hear your story. I'm like, holy shit. And then maybe later I found out you're a what? But like, I like you, dude. Like, it's, we call it, you're old from the Karate Kid. We're Miyagiing people in a way, right? Yeah. Like,
well, who cares?
Building relationships and trust. That's what, and serving the community. And along the way, you're going to meet people that aren't in your bubble. And that's how we, inspire kids to serve, inspire folks to get involved in their community. And it's not, rocket science. Just no one does it anymore, right? It's,
Having said that, and the fact that you guys don't address politics like that head on, I mean, I think it is important to remember, and I've said this to many times, The things that people complain about in their day-to-day lives are downstream from the votes that we have the ability to cast.
That's right.
They don't want to believe that. It's easy. Oh, my vote doesn't count. There's all sorts of these ways that you become disillusioned. And we were saying that, I was telling you this when we were walking over here. I don't care what people vote for, but I want them to express that right. Because the changes that I think that we need to make, they're upstream of the voting.
Yeah,
we
that's right.
have to participate. And if you don't,
It's our duty.
It is our duty to. And the numbers of Americans that actually vote is shameful.
Yeah.
I mean, we could probably change it, maybe do it on a Saturday, right, instead of a work day. Just let's start removing bullshit excuses, right? But you have to participate. We are going to have to. There's no way. I don't know how many people are, in totality between the White House and the Senate and the Congress, but those people work for us.
Yeah, that's right.
But if we don't participate, I think we kind of end up working for them. And that's not the way it's supposed to be.
You nailed it. Like, we own this country.
Yeah.
We, the people, own the country.
Only
right?
if
But we have to act.
participate.
We have to act.
Yes. If you don't, and you are allowed to absorb this message of your vote doesn't count, don't worry about it. You don't own it anymore.
No.
Yeah,
No.
you become a victim of your life, not the author of where your country's going.
That's right. And so when we talk about not being political, we don't choose a red or blue tag. What we do, though, talk about is that agency and responsibility to go out and do what you should do as an American citizen. Take on the responsibilities and the mantle that comes with that title and go make change yourself. And it's not just about voting. It is voting. You have to vote. But beyond that, if you see a challenge in your community, don't sit and just bitch about it. Go do something about it. This is the one country in the world where you can actually do that. You can actually change the situation.
I don't know if you know this, sir, but commenting on a Facebook post is brave.
Hitting like?
Not as brave. Because, people have to do one more click to see who liked what. But you get on there with your anonymous account and your anonymous picture and your made-up fucking username. And,
back to social media. Yeah.
And you make a comment, you're standing for what you believe in. You're brave. And for anybody who can't figure this out, I am fucking joking.
Well, I was saying, like, you could yell at your TV, or you could go do something. And a lot of Americans are like, well, what can I do?
I need you to have that conversation with my dad. He thinks it is a two-way radio more so than a transmission device occasionally. Also, he called me over one day because he couldn't get his TV turned on, and I followed the power cable, which was not to his television. It was one of those little circular ones for like a phone, and he had shoved it into his screw hole and was wondering why it didn't come
Like,
on.
well, my headphones didn't work earlier, huh? Like
That was actually Michael. It was himself a fucking screw hole. But you can take that however you want to, Michael.
with respect.
I'll take it sexually.
Well, it was intended to be
good. That was
sexual,
intended,
but
yeah.
I want you to be interpretive in which direction you want to take that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I want you to have.
Very accepting.
We're talking about choice.
A lot of
I want you to have that
Real
choice.
meaningful choices, Michael.
Do you think we have to get to that place where we almost lose it before people pay attention?
I mean, we're almost there.
So we're there, right?
We're almost there, Andy. I mean, like, you got.
It's hard to quantify, right? Because we don't know the road ahead of us and like what it would actually
mean-
take. But like, do we need something?
We don't know what truth is.
Yeah.
Our elections are like, are they? Some people question whether they're real or solid. Like those are the first major cracks. Can you trust the election? Can you trust what's true and what news outlet do we watch? I mean, that's how some third world country shit works, right? Like we're there, you know.
We've seen how this plays out. All three of us have.
Yeah.
We know what happens on the other side.
I just wonder what the tipping point is to inspire the average person. I don't know what that is. Is it small pockets of violence where people are absolutely forced to look at this and say, "Holy shit, I was not complicit, but I didn't get involved, and now I have." Is that what it takes? I don't want to see that, but I wonder. Right, like you're in a tunnel and nobody really how far is the end of this thing before we get to a point of no return?
Some people thought. I mean, a 9/11 style event. I mean, one of the most united times we ever had.
It was 9/12.
Yep.
Was the day after 9/11. Yep. I mean, it was unbelievable across the country. I never, ever want to see something like that happen in this country again. A lot of people thought COVID would be the uniting moment, but it ended up being extraordinarily
Didn't
divisive.
call that one well if people were thinking that because
it was
not
the
an
worst
expert,
ever.
but I think it went the opposite.
Yeah.
So
it's like, to your point, what is it going to take? outside of a violent, large-scale event, which I really pray does not happen.
Same.
There, I believe in the opposite power too. Like, I believe if average, everyday American citizen, can see that they can do something that creates like positive change. Like, I'll speak for myself. Like, I'm a knucklehead, grew up a farmer in West Virginia, became a Marine, right? I've been able to look. I am always the dumbest guy in the room when I'm around my team and everybody else. However, I've been able to have a little bit of an impact, right? And I'm just one person. And if I can make a difference like this, anybody can. Anybody can make that change. And I think when people see that, that creates something that I think is more powerful than anything in this world, which is hope. If you can have hope, Americans have lost hope, man. I talk to so many Americans. Yeah, you're right. Not all of them.
Yeah.
But so many Americans that I talk to have lost hope. They've lost that. And if we can regain that, if people can see, the path forward and they can see that hope, I think that can turn the tide. I think that could be the tipping point. But we need that to happen in small towns and cities all over the country. And we need to find common points to come together to be able to create those sparks of hope. If we don't, then we're left to the violence of these idiots who are leading us down the wrong trail, like the Pied Piper.
Yeah. Gentlemen, we've been at it for over 2 hours. I got to bounce out of here at 5.
Wow. There you go.
Well, no, it's good. I don't want to stop yet. I want you guys to close on, though, where can people get involved? How can they get involved? I think a lot of people are very willing to take action. Their question is, what can I do? And I don't even want to phrase it under what should I do, because I don't want to be directive. I'd rather just give people options.
Yeah. I have a couple ideas, and then Garrett, love you jump in. I think number one, do something. Like, doing nothing is not an option, right? So if we're laying out the suite of options, number one, do something. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of things you can do. Number one, a very simple thing, don't just, to your point, go on social media and hit the like button, or make a funny comment or an encouraging comment. Things like this Coffee and Courage Challenge require actual action with real people. If you want to do something, go take that action. It does honestly take courage. You kind of got to do something you're not used to doing. Go find somebody who's different than you and just have a cup of coffee. It's not that big of a deal, but you got to do it, right? That's like an entry point that you can do. There's other ways you can get plugged into what we're doing too. You can sign up to be a brickyard leader, to get trained to actually build out a chapter where you live, to start doing service projects and bringing people together to do real stuff in the community for others. But outside of More Perfect Union of what we're doing, there's lots of other good organizations out there too that you can get involved in. Find out what your passion is, and then go out there. Look, a lot of us are just working 3 jobs to pay the bills, but find that thing that you can be passionate about and in line with service, serving other people, whatever that is. Mm-hmm. Making meals for people on the weekends, going out and volunteering with your church, whatever it might be. Just do something. On the other end of that, there are some people in this world who have been blessed with a lot of wealth, a lot of capital. Find good organizations to get behind that are doing good things, that's measurable, that's creating change in the country, and get behind them in a real meaningful way. There's other folks out there that, I know I just told you, like folks like you that should run for office, but I'm not kidding. I'm not telling you to, but I'm saying people who have served and who are servant leaders who understand the cost of freedom. We need people running for office, and it sucks. It's awful, but we need folks running for city council. We need folks running for president who are not career politicians. If we want to steer this country in a different way at the top, we've got to get different types of blood in who are running for office. And that doesn't matter what ethnicity, socioeconomic status, it doesn't matter where you come from, but just have that servant leader heart and understand the values that can bring us together and run for something. Those are a couple ideas that I had of ways people can get involved, but do something.
Yeah. Something I say a lot is just get off the couch, dude, right? Yeah. Like, get off the keyboard. Do something in your life in the community. And that could be, look, I love if you join NPU, www.npu.us. But it could be, you could go coach a Little League baseball team and join the PTA, go to the VFW and talk to those guys, right? Like, but you got to meet people. It's the self-isolation. I'm going further down the silo. What my algorithm tells me to believe, what my news station tells me to believe, and I'm yelling at the TV instead of doing something positive, right? That could be volunteering at a nature park, picking up trash. And that sounds kind of hokey and kumbaya and hippy-dippy, But you guys know this, when you serve a cause greater than yourself, it's great for you. It's also great for the community too. And you're going to meet people. And I believe with all my heart, there's more of us that have so much in common that don't hate each other. The middle 75%, but we never interact. It's not on the news. It's not, it's not sexy to be friends with someone and there's no drama, right? So it's not social media. It's not a white hot meme. It's not like on one of the news stations of crazy stuff happening. But we can make it newsworthy, right? I mean, we're here because of a slow degradation, the frog in the boiling water, like it got worse and worse and worse. We can reverse it that way too, right? It's not going to be an overnight dramatic, tomorrow morning we were on this podcast and we saved America. But like, as some people...
I mean, let's not say that didn't happen.
It's some
You heard it here.
awesome folks like, hey, you know what? I am going to get involved. I'm going to do some shit. I'm going to join whatever it is, Knights of Columbus, Boy Scout. I mean, choose the group. It could be anything. But doing something for someone else alongside other people in real life and building relationships and trust, that's where it's at, right? I mean, I firmly believe that. And we all love this country. A lot of people that never sometimes would love this country too, by the way, right? And so this is a platform for them. And so that I have been so moved by just civic leaders, regular citizens who are like, can I help you? I'm like, you know you don't get paid, right? Like, yeah, I'm just happy that there's a platform for me to do something. And I get to get trained and I get to work alongside other awesome people. So this wasn't designed to be a leadership development organization, but people are becoming incredibly good leaders by working alongside. And 4 great leaders, we got some great trainers that people that come and speak to our folks that are, I mean, off the charts, right? I don't want to name drop, but like it's some big dudes, right? Anyway, I'm rambling, but sign up today.
No, it's good. I think one of the best things that could happen for humanity is social media platforms, for whatever reason, stop working. And it would be chaos for about a week, and then our society would be exponentially better in about 30 days.
But what if you could put on social media cool shit, right? Like you guys drinking, or somebody drinking coffee and talking about how they're friends.
No, sir.
No?
It'll be weaponized in some way. First, we have to go cold turkey. I forgot one of the other requirements that I had for changing the government. This one's slightly more controversial. Maximum age between the 2 final candidates is 100 years. Because the 153 that we had until recently, unacceptable.
So constitutionally it's 35. Oh, what's the math work out to? Yeah.
I mean, you have a sweet window.
Yeah.
You could 35, so it'd be 70 if they're. I'm not saying you couldn't have a 70. Well, fuck. I guess.
Yeah,
okay.
you could.
Listen, fine. We'll change the Constitution. Okay? No, okay.
That's
keep it
easy.
the way it is. You need to have some life experience. So that would mean 65 years old would be the maximum age for one candidate if they were up against somebody who is at 35. We need the vitality.
Yeah,
we
you're
need
right.
the different
It's a hard
perspective.
job.
And again, I'm spitballing this, right? I'm not saying we should vote on this shit right now. I'm just saying, maybe it would
So
work.
what you're saying is you're running tomorrow.
No.
You've heard it here first. Oh, sorry.
We're making news right now.
No, I'm not running here first at all.
Hey, let me say one more thing, though,
Fire away.
about what people can do. I love it and appreciate it until social media burns down, we have that week of solace.
Yeah.
Let's use these voices. So there's people who have platforms and influence, like yourself. You're out here, having conversations with us and other people trying to do good in the world. Influencers, people who have that platform. I'm a big believer for those who have been given much, much is required, right? So use your voice for good. Don't use it for, like you are, this conversation we're having today. Don't use it for divisiveness and fear and tearing people apart.
There's already enough of that.
Yeah.
in
There's
every
way too much
corner.
of that.
Yeah.
So let's call on these people who have that power and influence, to actually use that voice, because people will listen.
Yeah.
If people will listen, you can do a lot of good in the world. And so there's those who have that platform, and I just encourage them to use it.
That is a perfect ending. Gentlemen, thank you for your time.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, of course.
Appreciate it.